The water elemental general unleashed another ice whirlwind, conjuring countless sharp ice arrows in the sky that rained down on the skeleton army like a torrential downpour. However, the guardian at the forefront unfurled its majestic wings, effortlessly blocking all attacks and shielding the skeletal warriors behind it. The ice arrows clinked off its body, unable to inflict any damage or even cause the guardian to flinch. Observing from a distance, Lin chuckled softly while saying, "In front of the guardian, the same tricks are utterly ineffective." As the whirlwind of ice arrows dissipated, the skeletal warriors, as if on cue, surged forward in unison, swords drawn, charging at the water elemental general. The general, with 0 points in agility, immobilized on his throne made out of ice, became an easy target. Just as the skeletal warriors' swords stabbed into the general, a brilliant blue light burst forth from him, followed by a torrent of water gushing out and instantly transforming into a towering tidal wave that violently crashed into the skeleton army. Lin, witnessing this, was both surprised and impressed by the water elemental general's contingency plan. He quickly grabbed Ning Yi's hand and led her to a safe high ground. Watching his skeleton army engulfed by the massive wave, he didn't seem concerned, waving it off as he thought, "The water elemental general's wide-range AoE ability is indeed the bane of his skeleton army." But, before he could finish his thought, a huge shadow emerged beneath the water. No other than the guardian, along with hundreds of skeletal warriors hanging onto it. Next moment, they burst forth from the water, leaping down and launching another fierce assault on the water elemental general. This time, they gave the general no chance to recover, with the skeletal warriors wildly swinging their great swords, relentlessly attacking them. After a short while, all of the skeletal warriors retreated, and the guardian raised its massive cleaver high, ready to finish it off. The impact of its swing split the surrounding water, and with a flash of brilliant red light, the blade fiercely struck the water elemental general, splitting it in half, while shattering the ice throne beneath him. The system notification sounded, "Defeated level 37, water elemental general. Experience gained 1.48 million, 10 water elemental crystals obtained." After fulfilling his duty, the guardian slowly approached Lin and knelt on one knee, silently indicating his mission was successfully completed. Lin looked at this loyal guardian with a sense of satisfaction. He nodded gently and raised his scythe, preparing to recall the guardian back. The massive figure of the guardian gradually dissipated in a soft green glow of soully light, eventually being completely absorbed by the scythe. Lin then turned his attention to the fallen water elemental general. He was intrigued by this elemental being with its powerful AoE crowd control abilities. He thought to himself, it would be nice if he could turn it into one of his summons. Stepping over to the remnants of the general, Lin raised his scythe again, attempting to summon its soul. However, this time, nothing happened. There was no response from the scythe. Lin didn't get his hopes high, but still felt a tinge of disappointment. He let out a sigh. Evidently, as a pure elemental life form, the water elemental general lacked a soul, and thus could not be absorbed by the scythe. Bending down, Lin picked up the scattered water elemental crystals from the ground, mentally tallying the Hell Outpost Guardian, which is a boss-level monster he could now summon. He realized that while these summons could grant him immense strength, their duration was likely limited to around 3 minutes. Although maintaining them would consume a significant amount of his spirit points, this was enough time to defeat most ordinary bosses. Shortly after the water elemental general's death, Lin and Yi sensed subtle changes in their surroundings. The chaotic state of the elements significantly diminished, bringing a sense of freshness and harmony. The previously disordered elemental environment had caused discomfort, especially for Yi. Fortunately, with the defeat of the water elemental general, that discomfort disappeared. Continuing their journey a few minutes later, they noticed a stark change in the environment ahead. Not far off, a mountain range was engulfed in roaring flames, quite a peculiar sight, as it created a sea of fire that contrasted sharply with the snow and ice-covered ground they were walking on. As they fastened their steps and moved forward, they stepped into the fiery landscape. In this sea of fire, their skeletal armor flickered protectively against the surrounding flames. They quickly realized that this area had some sort of DOT damage. Other professionals venturing here would likely have to be more cautious, as the flames would continuously drain their health bit by bit. But for the pair, the skeletal armor was enough to keep them safe for now. Unscathed through the sea of fire, Lin speculated that after the Ice Palace and the Sea of Fire, they might encounter environments of wind and thunder next. After some time, they saw a massive burning mountaintop from a distance. At first glance, it appeared to be a mountain, but as they got closer, they had a better idea of what it actually was. When they finally reached the base of this mountain made out of flames, they realized it wasn't actually a mountain, but a gigantic flame, thousands of meters high, composed entirely of fire elements. As the flame contracted to about 30 or so meters high, it suddenly opened a pair of eyes. A detection spell revealed it as a level 37 Fire Elemental General. Like the Water Elemental General, it had 0 agility and seemed immobile. Surprisingly, this Fire Elemental General also had 0 strength, indicating it seemingly lacked any physical attack capabilities. But Lin didn't let his guard down, as its spirit points were still insanely high. With the Fire Elemental General unleashing its might, Lin quickly summoned his skeleton army. At the sound of "Arise, my soldiers," the skeletal army emerged from the ground. The Fire Elemental General exhibited its formidable power, shooting a massive pillar of fire from its body that exploded into countless fireballs raining down. This was its first ability, Fire Eruption, a dense and wide-ranging AoE attack with little room for escape. Lin and Ning Yi were protected by their skeletal armor from the fiery onslaught, but the skeleton warriors were less fortunate, getting scorched by the flames with crackling sounds. Lin then summoned his skeletal mages and began casting ice-type spells, choosing to use the Ice Blizzard spell due to the general's resistance to fire elements. Countless ice spikes appeared in the sky, falling like a torrential downpour upon the Fire Elemental General, surrounding it in dense steam. This attack, however, seemed to enrage the Fire Elemental General. The ground began to tremble, reminiscing an earthquake, as more flames and magma surged from beneath, cracking open the earth. The fire elements around became extremely chaotic. All fire elements converged and rose into numerous fiery columns, creating a sea of fire. This was the general's second ability, Magma Explosion. Lin reacted swiftly, grabbing Ning Yi and leaping back to dodge the attack. They retreated to a safe area where the skeletal warriors continued their onslaught, and the skeletal mages persistently cast an ice blizzard. As the ground in front of them split and columns of fire rose to the sky, Lin told Ning Yi not to blink. The Fire Elemental General's flames let out their last roar, then gradually extinguished and shattered to tiny pieces, culminating in a brilliant display of fireworks. Quite a romantic gesture from Lin to Ning Yi. The system notification rang out. Defeated level 37 Fire Elemental General. Experience gained 1.48 million. 10 Fire Elemental Crystals obtained. The death of the Fire Elemental General once again quelled the elemental chaos in the environment. Ning Yi looked at Lin tenderly, touched by his ability to create such a romantic moment amidst the chaos. As the pair continued to explore the mystery realm, a group appeared outside of the entrance. A small group of 5-person party appeared at the entrance of the elemental mystery realm. They were from a small nation up east. From the weapons they were carrying, it seemed like they comprised a tank, a mage, an archer, a support, and a swordsman, ready to venture into the realm. The 5-person team, after a long search, finally found the entrance to the elemental mystery realm. However, one member expressed confusion, as the legend suggested the area around the mystery realm should be swarming with elemental spirits, yet they hadn't encountered any. This observation caught the team's attention. The team leader, after a moment of contemplation, speculated that someone else might have already entered the realm. The rest of the team appeared anxious, worried that they might miss out on the rewards if they entered too late. The leader, however, remained calm. He reassured his teammates not to worry, smiling and stating that he could sense the presence of other adventurers who had only recently entered. He pointed out that having someone else pave the way into the mystery realm was actually an advantage for them, as it could save them a lot of effort. His strategy was to follow in the footsteps of the adventurers ahead, with the goal of catching up to them before they defeated the mystery realm's boss. either taking it away or hoping to share in the spoils. The team leader's confident demeanor brought laughter among the team members. Sinister smiles appear on their faces, as they know too well that what happens in the elemental mystery realm stays in the elemental mystery realm, and no one would find out it was them. After a few minutes spent checking their weapons, equipment, and supplies, they entered the dungeon in high spirits, chatting and laughing as if they were on a leisurely trip, unaware of what they were getting themselves into. Like Lin and Ning Yi, they too came across a massive ice palace upon entering. The support in the party cast a spell, and suddenly, footprints appeared on the ground. Strangely, aside from the footprints of what appeared to be a man and a woman, there were many other tracks, not resemble human footprints. However, the support urged the team to follow these tracks. Meanwhile, Lin and Ning Yi had already traversed the Sea of Fire and reached the world of wind elements. As they slowly advanced, followed by hundreds of skeletons, they navigated through an environment where chaotic wind elements sliced through the air like blades. Thanks to their skeletal armor, they remained unharmed. Above them, clouds floated in the sky, and suddenly, the dark clouds converged and plummeted towards them. After the smoke and dust cleared and thunder roared again, lightning streaked across the sky. Before them stood a colossal wind and lightning elemental being. The nearby wind and lightning elements had combined, forming a storm and ultimately manifesting this immense elemental being. Lin cast a detection spell, revealing it as a level 38 boss with very high attributes. Although its agility was only 5,000, not exceptionally fast, it was different from the previous two generals, as it could move more freely. Along with 3 abilities, it had 3 traits: physical attack damage halved, immunity to wind elements, and immunity to lightning elements. In an instant, a massive bolt of lightning struck Lin, but it was blocked by his skeletal armor. However, the armor showed cracks and emitted crackling sounds, indicating the surprising destructive power of this elemental general's seemingly simple skill. This was the general's first ability, Rolling Thunder. To control the general's movement, Lin raised his hand and cast a slowing curse. Huge shackles appeared on the general, significantly slowing its already modest speed. It moved sluggishly through the air, but in the next moment, amidst a deafening roar, a barrage of lightning bolts descended. The lightning struck densely, covering a huge area while hitting all the skeletal warriors in range. Those struck by lightning entered a state of daze for several seconds. Meanwhile, the skeletal mages continuously used fire and ice elemental spells, casting explosive flame and ice blizzard. After recovering from the daze, the skeletal warriors, enduring the barrage of lightning, leaped high and struck the elemental being with their swords. Lin found such flying adversaries particularly troublesome and annoying. He wished for some sort of flying skeletons in his army in the future, like skeletal dragons, for instance. It seems like the elemental general suffered immense damage and eventually fell from the sky. The battle, once again, was without surprise extremely one-sided. The skeletal warriors and mages seized the opportunity to intensify their attack. Soon, the system notification rang out. Defeated level 38 wind and lightning elemental general. Experience gained 1.52 million. 10 wind elemental crystals obtained. 10 lightning elemental crystals obtained. Following the death of the general, with the nearby elements calming down, Lin collected the dropped crystals and then recalled his skeleton troops, allowing them to slowly heal in the summoning space. He and Ning Yi then quickened their pace, knowing that their next challenge would be the elemental queen. Lin was aware that it wouldn't be long before the wind and lightning elemental being he had just slain respawned. In the elemental planes, the elements continued to rampage throughout the planes, ensuring that these creatures would respawn as long as the planes existed. Just like that, the journey ahead was smooth, and soon they saw another aurora composed of 4 different elements. Not far away, there was a palace built on a gigantic floating rock in the sky. The only way to reach the palace was by crossing these floating rocks. Inside the palace resided the strongest boss of the elemental planes, and its one true ruler, the elemental queen. She had long hair, wore a flowing gown, and was incredibly beautiful. It looked just like a normal human. The only difference, she had an extra pair of hands, and was surrounded by an elemental aura. Upon entering the palace and using a detection spell, Lin discovered that the Elemental Queen was level 39. Except for agility, her other 3 attributes were all at 20,000. She possessed 2 skills, and her traits included having both physical and elemental damage. This was the most powerful boss Lin had encountered so far, and with her powerful traits combined with high health, Lin anticipated a tough battle. At the thought of this, he summoned his skeleton army once again. The skeletal warriors rose from the ground and charged forward, followed closely by the skeletal mages. The Elemental Queen let out a piercing scream, unleashing her normal attack. The sound wave came in contact with the first wave of skeletal warriors, instantly annihilating the closest second skill. Elemental Starburst. A tornado of flames rushed toward the skeleton army, throwing several more skeletons into the air. This was followed by a wind tornado, its gale-like blades continuously decimating the skeletal warriors. Before even reaching the Elemental Queen, about 20 or so skeletal warriors were already destroyed. Lin took a deep breath, thinking to himself this was much more challenging than he anticipated. Elemental beings lacked souls and corpses, rendering his soul flame and corpse explosion abilities useless. So what might be the reason behind the White Divine assigning him with this mission? Lin, accustomed to bull through his way inside a dungeon, where he would simply outnumber the boss or out-DPS it. This time, it didn't seem to work. He then thought perhaps he would need to summon the undead general and the outpost guardian for a final stand. He regretted not gathering more information beforehand, as professionals over the years must have developed strategies against the Elemental Queen. Meanwhile, the 5-person team following their tracks reached the palace. Spotting Lin and Ning Yi in the distance, engaged in battle with the Elemental Queen, one female professional in the team suggested intervening and stopping them. However, the team's support, with a sinister smile, suggested they should let Lin and Ning Yi weaken the Queen, and then take out both of them and the Queen in one swoop. The team leader agreed with this plan and ordered an attack. Their female mage began chanting, with star patterns forming under her feet and emitting a bright light. Ning Yi sensed the change in energy and turned to see the 5-person squad hundreds of meters away. Realizing they were up to no good and planning for a sneak attack, she quick sneak attack. As she shouted her warning, a vast array of magical star patterns appeared overhead, and numerous fiery meteorites, burning intensely, rained down from the sky. This was the female mage's ultimate skill, Meteor Apocalypse, a devastating attack that threatened to engulf both Lin and Ning Yi in its fiery wrath. Lin glanced towards the direction of the 5-person squad, showing no signs of panic. Instead, a faint smile curled at the corners of his mouth, as if welcoming the challenge. How dare they sneak attack our boy Lin from the back? Do you know what this reminds me of? Wait, are you hearing what I'm hearing? No? How about Lin? A little closer. Lin had been contemplating the strategies on how to defeat the Elemental Queen, and regrettably, there were no corpses around. Knock knock, delivery is here. What a timely opportunity this was. As the meteor shower from the sky, the party of 5 ambushing the duo clearly had some bad intentions. As it turned out, the meteors did not cause any damage to Lin or Ning Yi, as their skeletal armor absorbed all the damage. However, some of the nearby skeletons took hits from it and lost a significant chunk of their health. Leaving a portion of his skeletal warriors to continue playing around the Elemental Queen, Lin directed the rest of his skeletal army to change course and charge toward the ambushing squad. The sight of nearly 100 skeletal warriors rushing towards them took the leading knight captain by surprise. He wondered aloud if these undead creatures were minions of the Elemental Queen, but he didn't recall hearing anything about it previously. Despite their shock, the team quickly prepared for battle. The knight captain raised his shield, while the other members drew their weapons. The team's support began casting buffs. The archer drew his bow to full length. The mage raised her staff, and the healer whipped out his oversized cross, ready to heal, or maybe perhaps to check if Jesus was available for a quick consultation, because soon he might need him. Suddenly, Lin raised his hand and cast a slow curse, sending several huge red shackles flying toward the 5 sneaky bastards, significantly slowing their movements and causing panic among them. The support member recognized this was a curse and told the healer to apply skills to remove the debuff. However, noting that the skill not only slowed their movements, it also slowed their speech, and the way they were communicating in slow motion was quite comedic. Unlike monsters, human professionals could utilize special skills to dispel curses. Other than those who have special skills in their kits, healers generally have a skill to remove debuff and curses too. Seeing the presence of a healer and support professional and their vital role in the team, Lin decided to target them first, knowing that eliminating the support and healers could weaken the team's overall effectiveness. As the skeletal mages took their positions, they raised their staffs and unleashed a barrage of 4 different elemental spells at the team. Meanwhile, the team's healer, reacting quickly, started to cast a Dispel Curse spell. However, upon looking up, the healer's eyes widened in horror, as it was too late to avoid the incoming onslaught of hundreds of spells. The healer, clutching an oversized cross, was struck by the barrage before he could evade. The team captain, seeing their healer under heavy fire, cursed in frustration as he was unable to rush to his aid. Realizing it was too late to intervene, he needed to stand his ground since the skeletal warriors were closing in. Shortly after, the dust settled, and the healer lay critically injured, barely clinging to life. The fact that he hadn't died instantly from such a barrage indicated he was not an ordinary professional, but rather a high-level professional. Noticing the skeletal warriors, now dangerously close, the team captain immediately used group taunt and chain abilities, drawing the skeletons aggro while pulling the leading skeletons toward him and away from his teammates. He then took out a potion and urgently instructed everyone to not be a cheap ass and start drinking their antidotes to dispel the curse. That being said, the member in the back quickly helped the healer to his feet, and everyone consumed their potions, removing the red shackles binding them. As soon as the curse was lifted, the healer cast a quick healing spell on himself, regaining some health, but still visibly shaken and in pain, relieved that he had narrowly escaped death. Despite wielding an oversized cross as a weapon, he certainly wasn't ready to meet Jesus just yet. Just then, the distant skeletal mages prepared another round of attacks. As the new wave of spells approached, the team captain raised his shield at the forefront, using a group protection ability to shield his team from the incoming magical assault. The team's energy shield managed to block the skeletal mage's assault, but not without sustaining damage, as it vibrated intensely and developed a crack. Luckily for them, the team narrowly escaped unharmed. The knight captain then quickly used another group protection while the rest of the team members did the best they could to help. Ning Yi observed that the members of the opposing team were at least level 40 and were professionals who had undergone second-class transfers. She could tell given their use of skills like the knight's group protection, group taunts, and group chains, and the mage's meteor apocalypse from earlier. Responding to Ning Yi's observation, Lin nodded in agreement, his expression turning more serious. He attempted to cast another slowing curse, but this time it had no effect. The opposing team's potion had not only lifted the previous curse, but also granted them temporary immunity to further curses. Lin realized that while he had encountered second-class transfer professionals before, this was his first time battling against them. Level 40 professionals were indeed powerful, especially with access to highly advanced skills, potions, and superior equipment. However, Lin wasn't deterred. These sneaky bastards had attempted a sneak attack, and if not for his skeletal armor, he and Ning Yi might have been in grave danger. Any normal level 25 professional like them would have fallen instantly under the mage's meteor apocalypse. Since the opposing team had chosen to ambush them, Lin was not going to let them get away easily. He ordered his skeletal mages to intensify their attacks and summoned even more skeletal warriors to charge at the squad. The team's captain gritted his teeth, bearing the brunt of the damage, while his team members struggled to inflict significant harm on the advancing skeletons. They were slowly pushed back by the relentless assault, and the healer's mana was almost depleted from constantly healing the knight captain. One of the members then asked their captain what to do next, as the skeletons seemed too strong to defeat. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the captain acknowledged they had bitten off more than they could chew. Regretting their decision, not only did they fail to steal the elemental queen boss, but now wasted their valuable potions too. Seeing Lin in the distance, he realized that Lin was not only handling the elemental queen, but also dealing with them simultaneously. Their only option now was to retreat. As the team members exchanged looks of agreement and were about to withdraw, they noticed two figures emerging from a distance, slowly approaching them. With a flicker of fire in his palm, Lin raised his hand and unleashed a soul flame towards the enemy team's healer. The flame landed on the healer's head, eliciting a scream of agony. The healer dropped his weapon and clutched his head in pain as if his soul was being scorched. Without the healer constantly healing him, their formation fell into disarray. The skeletal mage's assault broke through the energy shield, and a powerful thunderstrike sent the team's captain flying, shield and all, several meters away. The captain rolled on the ground, coughed up blood. With bloodshot eyes, he heard screams, lifted his head, and realized that with him and the healer incapacitated, their formation was breached. He heard his teammates' screams of terror and saw the mage being cleaved in half by a skeletal warrior and the archer pierced through the heart. Just mere seconds, his entire team had been swiftly eliminated. Seeing the skeletal warriors step on his teammates' corpses and charge towards him, in a desperate move, he consumed another potion to heal up his injuries and turned to flee. As several skeletal warriors rushed towards him, he activated the knight's signature skill, the Limitless Defense, creating an almost impenetrable energy shield around him, and fled at full speed into the distance, quickly passing the world of lightning elementals, braving the lightning as he escaped into the distance. Lin chose not to pursue it. A level 42nd class transfer professional knight, while using Limitless Defense, was notoriously difficult to kill. He turned back towards the Elemental Queen. They still had a crucial task at hand. The skeletal warriors picked up the 4 corpses and charged towards the Elemental Queen. As they approached, she unleashed another elemental barrage, but one of the skeletal warriors quickly threw the corpses towards her. Lin used Corpse Explosion, disrupting the Elemental Queen's attack, interrupting her spells, while with 3 more corpses thrown at her, and detonating mid-air. Boom! After 3 continuously resonating explosions, the explosions resounded with the Elemental Queen's screams of agony. After the smoke cleared, she was visibly injured, with 3 of her arms gone and with large cracks starting to appear on her body. Lin remarked on the high damage of Corpse Explosion, regretting that the knight had escaped. A knight's corpse, given his high health points, would have made for a potent explosion, potentially enough to kill the Elemental Queen in one go. With this missed opportunity, Lin prepared for the final confrontation as his skeleton army slowly closed in on the weakened Elemental Queen. As the battle reached its finale, the Elemental Queen, now with only 1 arm left, unable to use any of her abilities, resorted to close combat. Although she managed to kill a few skeletal warriors, she was overwhelmed by the relentless assault of hundreds of skeletal warriors and the continuous elemental attacks from the skeletal mages. Eventually, she was impaled by over a dozen swords and fell to the ground, defeated and unwillingly. The scene was so cruel that they even had to censor this part. The system notification then announced the defeated Elemental Queen, experience gained 2,340,000. 5 elemental crystals obtained. Turned out, these crystals could be used to craft top-tier platinum equipment, or used to enchant platinum gear, and finally, they could also be used to upgrade the cooldown amulet. Just like that, the Elemental Queen's body dissipated, and 5 elemental crystals appeared on the ground. Following that, the elemental mystery realm began to dissipate as well. Ning Yi exhaled in relief, remarking that it was finally over. Lin collected the elemental crystals scattered on the ground and recalled all his skeletal warriors to the summoning space for healing. Many of the skeletons were severely injured, and he had lost a few during the previous battle. That being said, the duo then began their journey back, and as the elemental mystery realm completely disappeared, they were transported out, reappearing in the elemental battlefield. However, no elemental creatures were in sight near them. They checked their location, and it seemed like the 3rd Yuan battlefield wasn't far from them. Lin, having obtained the elemental crystals, decided it was time to focus on grinding some merit, so he could get promoted to finish the last part of the mission assigned by White Divine. As they walked away, the landscape began to change dramatically. The ground turned dark, the air filled with the stench of rotting and decay. The corrupting power of the abyss began to spread outwards, slowly extending its reach across the land. Lin frowned, clearly disliking the pungent smell unique to the abyss. Ning Yi also covered her nose in disgust. As they proceeded, their presence attracted the attention of nearby monsters. several abyssal creatures emerged, their crimson eyes glaring ominously in the darkness, accompanied by occasional low growls. Lin cast a detection spell, identifying them as abyssal man-eaters. While not particularly strong, however, these creatures are usually in large groups and quite numerous, much like the abyssal hellhounds they had encountered before. These creatures lacked intelligence, and were said to be endlessly spawning in the abyss, making them impossible to eradicate. Consequently, the creatures charged toward the duo. With a closer look, these ugly mofos looked like Remy from Ratatouille, but on steroids, and maybe had some nuclear waste as lunch. Oh man, they looked awful. Without missing a beat, the skeletal warriors charged toward the abyssal man-eaters, their swords glowing red as they activated rampage strikes. Just like that, with a single strike, they easily dispatched the creatures. The system notified Lin, defeated level 35 abyssal man-eater, experience gained 175,000, military merits +1, and obtained monster claws. Despite being somewhat disgusting, these claws might be worth something. These lower-tier abyssal creatures offered no surprises, providing only a bare minimum of military merits. Suddenly, one of the creatures attempted a sneak attack, but Ning Yi, wielding twin Hell Outpost daggers, dodged the attack and swiftly dispatched the monster by stabbing it in the neck and slicing through, killing it in a single hit. It seemed these monsters were not entirely devoid of intelligence. Just then, a burst of fireworks exploded in the sky nearby, or perhaps a distress signal. Recognizing it, Lin and Yi understood human professionals in the distance were in danger. It was common for nearby professionals to respond to such signals on the Yuan battlefield. Without hesitation, they sprinted towards the source of the signal. After running for a few minutes, Ning Yi sensed something was amiss. They were nearing the central area, yet they hadn't encountered any more abyssal creatures on their hurried journey. Then, a sharp, sinister laughter echoed through the distance. The shrill, mocking laughter unmistakably belonged to an abyssal demon. Lin and Yi immediately realized that the nearby monsters must have been summoned away by this demon. Abyssal demons possess the ability to command other low-tier abyssal creatures, and it was highly probable that the professional who sent the distress signal was now besieged. Nonetheless, they accelerated their pace. The duo rushed toward the source of the signal. Meanwhile, a group of professionals found themselves encircled by hundreds of abyssal creatures, trapped with no avenue of escape. They were constantly retreating, huddled together, with each facing a different direction, with a knight at the forefront wielding a one-handed sword and a metallic shield, leading their attempts to break through the encirclement. Unfortunately, their efforts were thwarted by a demon hovering in the sky. The demon, with its purple skin, horned head, and sharp teeth, rode a massive winged hyena-like creature. It launched attacks from above, effectively preventing the knight and his team from breaking free each time they tried. The knight, frustrated and angered, cursed out loud as he realized that the demon was toying with them. It became apparent that the demon's strategy was to use the distress signal sent by them to lure more potential victims into its trap. As the demon jeered and taunted, the knight and his team formed a defensive circle. Knowing there was no chance of escape, they could only pray and hope for a group of powerful professionals to come to their aid. When the duo finally arrived, Lin quickly assessed the situation. He realized that the demon, while not exceptionally strong, posed a challenge with its ability to fly. We all know what Lin hates the most: flying monsters. Anyway, to defeat it, and make sure it doesn't run away, they needed a strategy to lure it to the ground. The demon, sensing a new human presence, turned towards the duo, its sharp fangs glinting as it let out a sinister laugh. It seemed surprised to see a level 26 and 25 professional, but then licked its lips in anticipation, commenting on how they would still taste great in a grotesque manner. The members of the trapped team heard the demon's remarks and felt a sinking sense of despair, wondering why such low-level professionals would appear in such a dangerous place. Realizing they were struggling to save themselves, let alone protect Lin and Yi, the demon, mounted on its beast, flew towards the duo with bloodthirsty excitement in its eyes, as if relishing the prospect of a delicious meal. But the demon seemed indifferent to his actions. It sneered at them, sadistically saying it would savor their fear and screams as if they were a fine seasoning to its feast. What the demon failed to notice was the lack of fear in their expressions. The two did not seem intimidated or panicked by its grotesque threats. As the demon swooped down towards the duo, its claws ready to strike, when the demon landed in front of them and swung its claw, it was met with a harsh collision. However, the skeletal armor emerged, blocking its attack. The demon was momentarily stunned, its claws tingling from the impact. In that instant, red shackles wrapped around the demon and its mount, significantly slowing their movements. Lin had successfully cast a slowing curse, and the demon quickly noticed how its movement was much slower than usual. This also affected the mount, rendering both of their movements extremely sluggish. The demon's elongated scream, and realized that this was some sort of curse. It attempted to retreat, but its movements, along with those of its mount, were incredibly slowed by Lin's curse. Seizing the opportunity, Lin summoned a large number of skeletal warriors, encircling the demon. The skeletal army, with their massive swords, relentlessly struck at the demon and its mount. Meanwhile, the trapped team, although unsure of what exactly was happening, they heard the demon's agonized screams and noticed the slowed movements of the creatures around them. The knight realized this was a curse and an ideal chance to break free. They quickly formed an attack formation and charged forward, cutting through the monsters, blocking their path and heading toward Lin and Yi Yi. Panting heavily with relief, they expressed their gratitude for surviving the entire ordeal. Lifting their heads, they saw hundreds of skeletons relentlessly hacking at the powerful demon, who was powerless to retaliate. In their amazement, in the final moment, one of the skeletal warriors pierced the demon's skull with a sword. The system notification announced the kill. Defeated level 38 Abyssal Wolf Demon, experience gained 380,000, military merits plus 50, and obtained Demon's Essence. The team gawked at the demon's corpse, gulping hard and blinking in disbelief. It's dead, and just like that? They wondered. Lin then asked them to step back, telling them that he was about to clear the area. The team hesitated, struggling to comprehend how a level 26 professional had swiftly killed a demon this easily. Ning Yi waved at them to snap them back, and told them to move back, cautioning that they might get caught in the crossfire. Reluctantly, they decided to retreat, and stood behind Yi, still worried about the hundreds of monsters ahead. Ning Yi just smiled, and told them to watch and enjoy the show. Lin lifted the curse, and the Abyssal Man-Eaters, now free from the slow effect, charged towards him en masse. As the Abyssal Man-Eaters closed in, Lin detonated the demon's corpse, resulting in a thunderous explosion that swept across a 100-meter radius. The shockwave hit like a wild gust of wind, forcing everyone to brace themselves against the powerful blast. The team was initially baffled by Lin's strategy, wondering how he could single-handedly face hundreds of Abyssal Man-Eaters, but their confusion turned to awe when Lin set off a massive explosion that eradicated the Man-Eaters in an instant. At first, they were stunned, then their jaws dropped as they witnessed the devastating aftermath. The team's perception of Lin shifted dramatically. They began to question whether he was truly just level 26, or perhaps everything they'd seen so far was just a dream. Everyone on the team thought the same because everything that just happened was simply too unreal. Ning Yi, already accustomed to such feats, wasn't overly surprised, however. She enjoys watching people admiring and respecting Lin. Nonetheless, including the Abyssal Wolf Demon, both she and Lin had earned hundreds of military merits from the entire encounter. Not long after, Yi Yi's badge shone brightly as she ascended to the rank of a level 6 private. For Lin, a few hundred military merits were nothing but a drop in the ocean. To advance his rank further, he would need to defeat even more powerful abyssal demons. Just as he pondered where he would be able to find these demons, the party of 5 approached him, with the knight captain expressing his gratitude to Lin. He acknowledged that without Lin saving their ass, his team had no chance of surviving. Lin responded modestly, stating that anyone who saw a distress signal would have done the same. Through their conversation, Lin learned that the team was a demon hunting squad. The captain, somewhat embarrassed, mentioned that Lin and Ning Yi had to see such a lame demon hunting squad like them. To be fair, they were a new demon hunting squad and didn't have too much experience. Another team member remarked it was all because of the sudden appearance of an abyssal demon. After some chit-chat, Lin then inquired about their current location. The knight captain patiently explained that the abyss was divided into multiple layers, the outer, middle, and deep layers. The 1st to 3rd Yuan battlefields corresponded only to the outer layer of the abyss. Due to the presence of the eternal wall and barriers set up by powerful human professionals, the more formidable abyssal demons couldn't enter these battlefields from the entrance. However, the weaker demons managed to sneak in. The Knight Captain elaborated on creatures like abyssal dog demons and abyssal wolf demons, which, despite being considered weaker in the spectrum of abyssal demons, posed a significant challenge for average parties. Their ability to call over hundreds of abyssal creatures made them tough opponents. Lin recalled his encounters with these lower-tier demons, realizing that, while they might not have high attributes, they were certainly not foes that average professionals could handle alone. The captain further explained that battlefields numbered 4 and above overlapped more closely with the deeper layers of the abyss, where encounters with more and stronger abyssal demons were frequent. Demons above level 40, commonly referred to as high-tier demons, were especially powerful and numerous in these areas. Just like human professionals, level 40 was a significant threshold even for these abyssal demons. Although they can't undergo second-class transfers, it still marked a leap in their strength and abilities. With that being said, the deepest parts of the Third Yuan battlefield, the captain continued, intersected with some of the entrances to the abyss, offering glimpses into the deeper layers. These areas were teeming with abyssal creatures and were frequent haunts for demons. The Knight Captain mentioned there was also a nearby dungeon in the area, but chuckled as he recalled that their team wasn't strong enough to make it there. Lin's interest was piqued upon hearing this, thinking that the dungeon seemed like an excellent place to farm military merits. To him, danger seemed more like an opportunity, with powerful demons merely representing experience points and merits to be earned. When Lin expressed his desire to know the exact location of the deeper areas of the third battlefield, the captain was initially surprised. However, remembering Lin's freakish strength, he felt he shouldn't be worried about them, and quickly pulled out a map, pointing out the specific location. After exchanging goodbyes, Lin and Yi Yi headed toward the deeper regions of the battlefield. The party watched their departing figures, remarking that perhaps this young man would even bring them more surprises in the future. As the duo journeyed onwards, it was odd since they encountered no abyssal creatures along the way, likely due to the creatures nearby being all called over by the abyssal wolf demon earlier. After a while, they began to see more human professionals, some alone, but mostly in parties of 5 or more. Seeing this, the pair knew they were nearing their destination. Soon they reached the deepest part and the boundary of the third battlefield, which bordered the abyss. It was as if an invisible wall separated 2 worlds, with an intangible force dividing them. Without hesitation, the duo stepped into the abyss. The darkness in the abyss was so thick it felt tangible, enveloping everything in an impenetrable veil. The sounds near the entrance were faint, perhaps the dripping of water. If one looked closely, one could spot numerous pairs of crimson-red eyes glinting with a predatory hunger in the pitch-black abyss. As Lin and Ning Yi Yi stepped through the entrance, a scream echoed from above. It was high-pitched and didn't sound human alike. They looked up to see a massive creature plummeting from hundreds of meters in the air. This grotesque abyssal demon crashed to the ground with a heavy, resounding thud, shaking the ground and leaving a crater where it landed. Dust billowed up around the fallen demon, which twitched briefly before lying still. Yi was visibly startled by the sudden appearance of the demon. As the dust settled, Lin carefully observed the demon's appearance. At that moment, a figure emerged in the sky, holding a dagger that emitted a faint red glow. This person appeared to be an assassin profession, and Ning Yi Yi recognized the weapon in his hand as a platinum-grade weapon, indicating that the individual was at least a level 40 professional who had undergone second-class transfer. The masked figure in the sky glanced at Lin and Ning Yi Yi before departing. Lin was quite surprised to see someone effortlessly kill a level 38 abyssal demon with a single strike. Knowing they were in the right spot, Lin turned to Yi and told her that they needed to quicken their steps. Otherwise, there would be nothing left for them. As the pair continued forward, they encountered several abyssal man-eaters. Lin employed his soul flame while Yi Yi quickly dispatched another. Despite having walked for half an hour, they only encountered these weak abyssal creatures and hadn't seen a single abyssal demon. Yi Yi wondered aloud if perhaps the earlier second-class transfer professional had already slain them all. Just as she spoke, a scream rang out from above. They turned towards the source of the sound to see a group of demons appear in the sky, seemingly tearing at something. Several demons were circling overhead, their claws and sharp teeth rending the body of a human professional. Blood rained down from the sky, but the screaming was brief and soon replaced by the chilling sound of crunching as bones were crushed between the demon's teeth. A dagger with a faint red glow fell from the sky and embedded itself in the ground. Both Lin and Yi recognized it as the weapon of the assassin they had seen just 30 minutes ago. Lin's pupils constricted in surprise, while Yi was devastated, so shocked that she covered her mouth in disbelief. The powerful assassin, a high-level professional who had just one shot at a level 38 abyssal demon, was now being devoured by the demons. Lin took a closer look. Among the demons feasting, one was particularly distinctive, its body appearing like smoke, wavering in and out of solidity in the air. Lin instinctively pulled Ning Yi behind him, sensing the imminent danger from the powerful demon. His detection spell revealed that they were facing a level 40 high-tier demon with exceptionally high attributes, especially in agility, which was at 22,000. This demon also had special traits, which allowed it to see through invisibility and reduce physical damage taken by half. This perfectly explained why it had been able to kill the assassin so easily. The appearance of the duo caught the attention of the airborne demons. The demon in charge, no other than a shadow demon, let out a screeching laugh and disdainfully remarked on their courage for venturing into such a dangerous place at only level 26. The other demons joined in, cackling sharply and excited about their unexpected desserts. As several demons dove towards them, their assault was abruptly halted by Lin's skeletal armor, which upon impact repelled the demons backwards. It was rare for demons of level 40 or higher to roam on the third battlefield, and Lin realized the stroke of luck in encountering them. He was not planned to let it escape, thus he needed to lure them closer. Before the demons could react, Lin summoned a horde of skeletons rising from the ground. The shadow demon in the sky, sensing the threat, immediately used its ability to become shadowy and intangible, hoping to escape. But Lin was not about to let them get away. A flash of red light signaled the activation of his skill. Slowing curse. Hundreds of red shackles appeared, tightly binding the demons. Without missing a beat, the skeletal warriors leaped up, relentlessly slashing at each of the abyssal demons. Realizing his movement was severely hindered, the shadow demon understood that Lin must have ensnared him with some sort of curse. Despite its high attributes and special traits that prevented it from being immediately slain by the skeletal warriors, the demon recognized its need to find a way to escape. However, its attempts to escape were futile against the relentless assault of the skeletons. Seeing that the attacks of his skeletal warriors were ineffective, probably due to the demon having a reduced physical damage-taken trait, Lin immediately summoned skeletal mages to help out. At the same time, a green flame appeared in his hand. What followed was all of the skeletal mages began channeling their spells. Wondering to himself, if physical damage couldn't harm the demon, then he would try elemental damage this time. Unsure what Lin's plan was, in response, the shadow demon used another skill, entanglement. Its body shrank as countless shadows emerged, wrapping around the nearest skeletal warrior. Suddenly, the shadow demon figure vanished, causing the red shackles binding it also to vanish. What followed was the shadow demon appearing behind one of the skeletal warriors, which began attacking other skeletons like a puppet on strings. Lin, a bit surprised, but quickly ordered all skeletal warriors to retreat. As the shadow demon seemed puzzled by Lin's actions, hundreds of spells rained down from the sky, crashing onto the demon. To prevent its escape, Lin also used Soul Flame. The demon's body twisted and it screamed in agony as the skeletal warrior it had possessed was shattered to pieces. Rip Skelly, number 135. As the dust settled, the shadow demon was quickly surrounded once again, leaving the shadow demon no choice but to resort to its trump card. Opening its massive mouth, it screamed, sending shockwaves spreading out to call over his minions to gather around him. Lin, with a smile, asked the demon if it was looking for its minions. Behind him, each skeletal warrior held up their sword high, each with a demon impaled on it. Yi, wiping sweat from her forehead, remarked on how tough it was killing these minion demons. Frustrated and defiant, out of desperation, the shadow demon let out a furious roar and dove towards Lin. Seeing the opportunity, the skeletal warriors simultaneously threw the corpses of the minion demons they held at the rapidly descending shadow demon. Raising his hand, Lin activated Corpse Explosion. The bodies of the minion demons rapidly expanded, flames erupting from within them, and the moment they made contact with the shadow demon in the sky, Lin triggered the explosion. A deafening blast echoed through the sky, so loud that it even covered the demon's screams. A massive explosion expanded rapidly, obliterating the shadow demon and the minion demons without a trace, leaving behind only a purple crystal falling from the sky. The system notified Lin defeated level 40 abyssal shadow demon, gained 800,000 experience, 500 military merits, and obtained a demon crystal. Ning Yi, delighted, looks at her badge, which had been upgraded to the rank of lieutenant, and tells Lin how grateful she is to have Lin helping her out. She joked that her grandfather would be astounded if he saw Lin's prowess with his own eyes. Lin smiled and mentioned that as a lieutenant, every star would require 10,000 military merits. They chit-chatted for some time, then decided to venture next into the deeper part of the border, rumored to be a frequent haunt for demons. Back at White Divine's small courtyard, Meng Anwen looked at him in disbelief, questioning why Lin had been sent to the elemental mystery realm. White Divine, sipping his tea calmly, simply stated all he wanted to see was the limits of Lin's capabilities. He mentioned that Lin had effortlessly tackled major dungeons like the Tyrant Desert, carrying over 39 people, while earning a significant number of points, and even single-handedly cleared the hell-level difficulty of the Dragonkin Outpost dungeon, eliminating thousands of abyssal hellhound all by himself. In White Divine's eyes, the elemental mystery realm would pose no significant challenge to Lin. Meng Anwen, rubbing his forehead, countered that the elemental mystery realm was far more difficult than those dungeons he had mentioned, and that the elemental queen's attributes were comparable to those of high-level demons above level 40, not to mention her powerful skills. Meng Anwen's furrowed brows reflected his concern as he pointed out that while Lin's skeletons were high in numbers and quite powerful, the elemental queen was not easily overwhelmed by numbers. The skeletal warriors might even struggle just to get close to her. White Divine reassuringly mentioned that even if Lin couldn't defeat the elemental queen, he was capable of escaping unscathed. Facing occasional setbacks could be beneficial as it would help ascertain Lin's limits. Additionally, the imprint from the Hall of Heroic Spirits would protect Lin from life-threatening dangers. However, White Divine casually mentions how he also assigned Lin to a task to the abyssal border of the 3rd Yuan battlefield to hunt demons and increase his military rank. Hearing this, prompted Meng Anwen to stand abruptly, slamming his hand on the table. He questioned if White Divine had forgotten something. He looked up in confusion. Meng Anwen shook his head and then told him that the granddaughter of Old Ning was with Lin. However, unlike Lin, she didn't have the protective imprint. Meng Anwen pointed out that if Old Ning finds out about this, he will surely flip out. As the two discussed the matter, Old Ning entered the courtyard, catching bits of their conversation, hearing something about someone being dead, and inquiring about their discussion. White Divine quickly deflected, suggesting that he had misheard. Meng Anwen couldn't help but chuckle at the situation. Seeing White Divine pouring himself a cup of tea, Old Ning, sensing something amiss, speculated that White Divine might have assigned Lin another task. White Divine, not daring to reveal the true nature of Lin and Yi's journey, was honest about Lin being on a task. However, he reassured Old Ning that Lin would surely keep his precious granddaughter safe. Old Ning coldly huffed. Turned out that Old Ning had already prepared a soul protection charm for Yi a long time ago to keep her safe. However, he sternly warned that if any harm came to his precious granddaughter, White Divine would be the first he'd seek, which White Divine responded with a smile, assuring that everything would be fine, all the while concealing Lin and Ning Yi's real whereabouts. Meng Anwen, trying to suppress his laughter, sipped his tea, shaking his head and thinking to himself about White Divine's predicament. As the scene shifts, we once again return to the deepest part of the 3rd Yuan battlefield. Lin and Ning Yi stand before what seemed like a portal exuding dark, sinister energy. Peering through, they could see pairs of crimson-red eyes staring back at them from the other side. It was evident that this gate was connecting the 3rd battlefield and the Abyss, the gateway through which the weaker demons infiltrated the Yuan battlefield. The concentration of abyssal energy on the other side was palpable, signaling the imminent entry of more demons. The two stepped back, preparing for what was to come. Moments later, a horde of abyssal man-eaters surged through the gate, followed by dozens of demons, including some that resembled the abyssal wolf demons Lin had previously encountered, and others that appeared snake-like demons. Upon arriving through the gate, the demons roared out how they were going to bring doom to the human professionals, and how they were going on a feast. Their shrill laughter echoed ominously, but their triumph was short-lived. Suddenly, hundreds of spells rained down like a storm, engulfing them. The abyssal man-eaters in the very front perished instantly, and the abyssal demons were thrown into confusion, roaring in anger and accusing the unseen assailants of cowardly ambush. When the dust settled, they spotted a human figure standing not far away. The sight of a lone human confronting such an overwhelming force surprised and enraged the demons, but little did they know, they would soon turn into experience points and merits. As the abyssal demons slowly emerged from the portal, Lin swiftly cast Slow Curse, quickly entangling the demons and abyssal creatures with countless red shackles. Before the demons could even comprehend why they were moving in slow motion, hundreds of skeletal warriors had already descended from above. Some fiercely grappled with the demons, preventing their escape, while others brandished their great swords, striking fiercely at every one of them. The skeleton's blades tore through the flesh and bone of the abyssal demons, eliciting screams of agony from high above. After dealing with a series of heavy blows, the skeletal warriors retreated a few steps, hurling the corpses of the abyssal man-eaters at the demons. Lin then raised his hand, activating Corpse Explosion. The series of explosions that followed swiftly finished off the already battered demons. The system notifications flashed one after another, rapidly increasing the duo's experience and merit points. Lin gazed at the portal that served as a boundary between the abyss and the third Yuan battlefield. It stood like a colossal door, emanating an intensely and ominous darkness. The discomfort could be felt even from a distance. However, Lin was smiling while remarking on how this place has the potential to be an excellent place to farm military merits. As the abyssal energy continued to pour into the third Yuan battlefield through the portal, one could still see countless pairs of blood-red eyes on the other side, signaling the imminent arrival of more demons. In response, Lin and his skeletal warriors quickly gathered the intact demon corpses nearby and hurled them towards the portal. Once again, Lin activated Corpse Explosion, causing a massive explosion that shook the entire portal. What followed was system notifications flooded in once again, with experience and military merits rapidly accumulating in Lin's badge. In just a matter of seconds, they had gained several thousand military merits. It almost felt like he was exploiting the eagerness of the abyssal demons trying to invade the third battlefield to farm merits. With that being said, Lin didn't let this opportunity slip by. He continued to throw demon corpses into the portal and detonate them with Corpse Explosion. He repeated this tactic several times, each time met with the appearance of those sinister red eyes from the other side of the portal. The substantial gains in military merits had brought them tantalizingly close to a promotion, but just as they were about to continue their assault, the portal began to distort, seemingly on the verge of collapsing after the repeated explosions. The look of disappointment was evident on Lin's face as he watched the portal gradually closing, thinking it was a pity that they couldn't farm a bit more. However, just the duo was about to turn around and leave. The unstable portal suddenly stabilized. Suddenly, sensing imminent danger and drenched in cold sweat, Lin quickly pulled Ning Yi behind him, reinforcing both of their skeletal armor. They hastily retreated several meters as a ferocious aura erupted from the portal. A massive eyeball appeared within the portal, and a voice sounded, calling out Lin's name with a menacing tone that caused both Lin and Yi intense pain, as if the sound could penetrate their souls. Turn out. This was no other than the Flame Demon Lord that Lin had met just weeks ago on the first battlefield. The eye widened in rage, cursing Lin with threats of death. Clearly, without the Demon Watch Eye protecting Lin this time, the Demon Lord was not going to let Lin off this time. What followed was beams of deadly energy shot Lin with incredible speed. Turned out, his skeletal armor was shattered upon impact, and Lin was violently thrown back. At the same time, the damage transfer effect was triggered. Within just mere seconds, dozens of skeletal warriors were obliterated. The numbers in his skeletons dwindled rapidly. It was then Lin realized how powerful those beams were. Knowing this situation was dire, and the number of his skeletons was rapidly decreasing, Lin needed to figure something out. His eyes quickly fixated on the only corpse of the demons left on the ground. He ordered the nearest skeletal warriors to hurl the demon corpses towards the portal. Simultaneously, Lin activated his skill. Corpse Explosion. After a deafening explosion, the portal once again began to distort under the force of the explosions, the enraged demon lord on the other side roaring in fury. However, despite its efforts, it couldn't stabilize the portal. Before the portal fully closed, the demon lord bellowed one last threat, vowing it wouldn't let Lin go next time. Exhausted but relieved, Lin sat down, a wry smile on his face as he looked up as if he was responding to the threat, saying they would see about that. The good news was that the portal had completely vanished, and Lin finally allowed himself to relax. He took a deep breath, still feeling the remnants of fear from the close encounter. He realized that if he had been just a few seconds slower, or if there hadn't been any demon corpses to use for the corpse explosion, the situation could have turned dire. Standing up, Lin dusted off his clothing, and with a nod to Yi, the two prepared to leave the area. As Lin and Ning Yi approached the deepest part of the third battlefield along the abyssal boundary, they encountered a large gathering of professionals near a massive dungeon entrance. The scene was reminiscent of other dungeon gatherings, with groups sitting around fires, engaged in conversation and laughter. No one seemed to worry that they were literally sitting next to the abyssal boundary. Upon checking the dungeon information, they learned it was named Third Battlefield World. The dungeon was accessible for professionals between levels 25 to 35, recommended for groups of 4 even at its normal difficulty level, and 12-man groups for hell level difficulty. Lin assessed the situation, considering that most of his skeletal warriors had recovered, and the presence of many high-level professionals nearby, which minimized the risk of a surprise demon attack. At the same time, after reading the description, he was also aware of the dungeon's unique blend of forces from the human world, the abyss, and the elemental planes, which they needed to be more cautious of. As they prepared to enter the dungeon, a slightly older professional called out to them. He had noticed when they first arrived here and pointed out the dungeon is recommended for level 30 and higher. He tells them that it's too dangerous for 2 level 26 professionals to venture inside, suggesting they join a group. The man seemed genuinely concerned, offering his advice out of goodwill. Lin responded with a grateful smile, thanked the advice, turned around, selected the hell level difficulty, and the both of them disappeared from the entrance. Watching the duo enter the dungeon, the older professional let out a sigh, perhaps thinking the duo would likely die out there. However, his teammate walked over and reminded him about their badge. He tells him that the duo were both lieutenants, and despite their apparent low level, it was clear that they had battled demons before. This piqued the interest of the surrounding professionals. One of them talked about a recent story he had heard of an 18-year-old lieutenant who soloed a hell difficulty outpost dungeon at level 24 on the first battlefield, stirred a buzz among the crowd, many of whom had not heard of such feats. Their curiosity grew, eager to hear more about this exceptional young professional. Meanwhile, Lin and Ning Yi found themselves at the entrance of the dungeon, located atop a mountain that offered a panoramic view of the entire dungeon. The landscape was divided into stark contrasts, one side bathed in daylight, the other enveloped in dark night. The dungeon world was clearly segmented into 3 distinct areas, each dominated by different forces. Ning Yi pointed excitedly toward the center of the dungeon, where the day and night met, drawing Lin's attention with a closer look. It was 2 factions clashing with each other. From the abyssal side, a multitude of creatures and demons surged forth. On the other side, human professionals stood ready to battle. Some were even seen flying in midair. Lin squinted, sensing something was odd. It wasn't just the human professionals. Something was off about the abyss as well. He then realized all these were mere illusions. Seeing demons from the abyss ascending to the sky as well, it was obvious that they were outnumbered in the air. One of the human professionals raised his staff and shouted, "Banish flight!" Suddenly, all of the abyssal demons, even the powerful human professionals, slowly descended from the sky, and everyone's ability to fly was gone. Shortly after, he was the only one able to fly. He raised his staff again, unleashing a forbidden spell, Elemental Chaos. Instantly, 4 elements shot out from his staff, shaking the entire dungeon. At the same time, all of the other human mage professionals also raised their staffs, relentlessly bombarding the abyssal demons with powerful spells. The demons suffered heavy casualties until a towering abyss demon appeared. The skills seemed to inflict no harm on him. His massive frame, with wings stretched, spanned tens of meters. The demon took a deep breath, and the next second, he too unleashed a powerful skill that swept across the entire human army. The collision of the forbidden spell caused a massive explosion mid-air, enveloping the entire dungeon in splendid rainbow-colored light. Lin and Yi were forced to shield their eyes with their hands. When the light dissipated, both humans and demons had vanished. The world, once a mix of black and white at the center, had turned into a land of elemental chaos. As it turned out, what they had seen was the history of a great war and the origin of the elemental planes. The clash of mighty skeletons. Upon their arrival, an abyssal creature immediately charged at them. With the use of a detection spell, they identified it as a level 34 battlefield demon wolf with exceptionally high attributes, as it turned out. This creature was enhanced by the abyssal energy, increasing its defense and vitality. Lin ordered the skeletal mages to attack the demon wolf with their skills, but to his surprise, the creature was not instantly killed. Instead, it charged out from the attack. Lin was slightly surprised, considering the combined firepower of 100 skeletal mages was quite powerful, yet this creature only sustained minor injuries. Seemed like the abyssal energy surrounding the creature indeed made it much more powerful. However, Lin was not overly concerned. After all, it would only take a few more strikes to bring it down. He then commanded the skeletal warriors to charge at the demon wolf. The leading skeletal warriors unleashed their rampage strike, their greatswords glowing red as they struck. In mere strikes, the creature's flesh was torn open. Soon, a system notification announced the defeat of the level 34 battlefield demon wolf, awarding 680,000 experience. After its death, the demon wolf did not leave behind a corpse, instead turning into black mist and disappearing. It was similar to the creatures of the elemental planes. It's a pity that Lin could not use corpse explosion here. Yi noticed this as well, leaving them no choice but to grind one creature at a time. But there was one issue, which was that this world was entirely enveloped in darkness. It was like a world of eternal night, devoid of any light, making visibility extremely poor, which was a headache for Lin. At that moment, a spark flashed in Yi's eyes, activating an assassin's skill that allowed her to see clearly in the darkness. She then marked every demon wolf she spotted with her dagger, and Lin would command the skeletal warriors to attack the marked target. After killing a few creatures, both of them felt that this place was somewhat too easy, not of that typical hell-level difficulty dungeons. Continuing their journey, Lin and Yi plowed through their enemies with ease. Soon, both of them were enveloped in a golden light, signaling their level up. Lin reached level 27, and Yi level 26. The more they fought, the more they found the simplicity of this dungeon. The dim light had previously obscured Lin's notice, but now he observed that upon death, these monsters released some abyssal energy, slowly floating away, seemingly absorbed by something. Minutes later, they encountered a massive stone statue that was absorbing this abyssal energy. Lin confirmed his observation was correct. As they defeated these monsters, the energy released upon their death flowed into the statue. Presumably, once the statue absorbed enough energy, the boss would reveal itself. The duo continued to kill off the nearby monsters, defeating them one after another, and indeed, the energy from their foes was absorbed by the statue. Before long, all the surrounding monsters had been eliminated. They had finally arrived at the foot of the statue. Looking up, it appeared that the statue was at least 100 meters tall. At its summit, a light began to emerge. After a short while, the statue started to tremble, and at its top, a boss appeared, a massive beast covered in dense black fur, adorned with glowing, sharp spikes pointing outwards. This was the level 36 Elemental Leopard King, with all 4 attributes reaching up to 15,000, equipped with 2 skills and 3 special traits: high speed, significantly enhanced vitality, and fortified defense. The Elemental Leopard King let out a roar, swinging its claws at them without giving a moment for reaction. Its agility of 15,000, combined with the high-speed special trait, granted it astonishing speed. Although its attack was blocked by skeletal armor, it posed a significant threat. Lin instructed Yi to retreat, and then summoned his scythe, noting the boss shared similarities with the Hell Outpost Guardian. Utilizing the scythe's soul-summoning skill, he called forth the Guardian. Given its level 33 status, its attributes were slightly inferior, however. This wouldn't be a problem. Lin then applied a slowing curse, binding the Leopard King's body with massive red shackles. Seizing the opportunity, the Guardian charged at the Leopard King with its cleaver, landing a fierce strike on its body. The attack caused only a minor cut on its lower limb, but Lin noticed streams of black energy escaping from the elemental Leopard King. Suddenly realizing something, Lin summoned a skeletal army to join the fray, quickly covering the beast. Their great swords chopped down forcefully. Despite their small size, each rampage strike from the skeletal warriors left wounds on the Leopard King. Skeletal mages encircled and bombarded the Leopard King, with the Guardian distracting and the rest of the skeletons dealing damage. More and more black energy leaked from the Leopard King, significantly reducing its size. Suddenly, the Leopard King's body glowed, followed by a roar as it unleashed the elemental explosion skill. A massive elemental explosion on its surface sent dozens of skeletons flying. The blast radius expanded, throwing most of the surrounding skeletons away, even pushing the Guardian back several steps. After using its skill, the Leopard King's body shrank further, lying on the ground with black energy continuously leaking out. Lin realized then that the elemental Leopard King was not an abyssal creature, but made out of these abyssal energies. Depleting its energy would lead to its defeat. The skeletal mages continued their assault, preparing to land hundreds of elemental attacks on the Leopard King. In its anger, the Leopard King unleashed its second skill, Elemental Sweep. A powerful shockwave collided with the skeletal mage's spells mid-sky, effectively blocking the attack, but giving the Guardian a chance to strike fiercely at the Leopard King, targeting its abdomen. This time, a massive amount of black energy flowed out, and as Leopard King turned into the last wisp of smoke, it dissipated completely. The sky suddenly brightened, and the system simultaneously announced, defeated level 36 Elemental Leopard King, obtaining 2.16 million experience and an elemental staff. Lin took a few steps to pick up the loot and checked the status of the elemental staff. It turned out to be a piece of gold tier equipment. Spirit plus 600, Vitality plus 400, Mage class skills, Amplification 22%. Finish reading the status. He was somewhat confused. The loot did not seem fitting for a dungeon of hell difficulty. Aside from being quite tanky, there wasn't much challenge. It was even easier than the Hell Outpost dungeon. Yi hurried over, pointing in another direction and shouting that something was happening over there. Lin looked up to see a mage floating in midair on the other side, in the human world, holding a staff. When Lin set his gaze on the mage also looked down at him. Their eyes met. A voice, both deep and authoritative, appeared in Lin's mind, saying, "Come find me." Lin was startled, feeling a shiver down his spine. Turning to Yi, it seemed she didn't hear anything. The voice seemed to only resonate directly within his mind. Intuition told him he must go. Unsure of the dangers that lay ahead, with all monsters on this side cleared, he asked Yi to wait for him there. Understanding she couldn't offer Lin any assistance, Yi could only urge him to be cautious. Lin then ascended the stairs once more, heading towards the human world. Quickly, he reached the human world, which, in contrast to the abyss's darkness, was bathed in light, almost too bright. The mage floating in the sky was the first to catch his eye. Upon Lin's arrival, the mage, as if mustering all his strength and with a pleading look, slowly uttered a few words. "Kill me." The mage, before Lin, repeatedly uttered the same plea. "Kill me, kill me." Following this, the mage summoned a staff. His hands seemed to be trembling uncontrollably. Lin looked confused, unsure what was going on. Yet he proceeded to use a detection spell. To his surprise, the mage in front of him was incredibly powerful. A level 39 elemental archmage with all 4 attributes at 10,000. Not only that, its spirit attributes, which astonishingly reached 40,000. The archmage also possessed 5 unique skills and a special trait that significantly enhanced its health points. As Lin marveled at these incredible stats, the archmage's voice echoed once more, followed by a buzzing sound from the staff. At that very moment, the entire dungeon vibrated momentarily. The mage then shouted, "If you cannot kill me, I will kill you." Before Lin could react, the elemental archmage fired a dragon made of fire from his staff, heading straight for Lin. Without much time to think, he immediately fortified his skeletal armor, thinking to himself that this archmage must have been the real end boss in this dungeon. But he had one question: why is the end boss a human mage? However, he didn't have much time to ponder. Even with his skeletal armor, he didn't think he could withstand a spell with 40,000 spirit points. A skeletal warrior suddenly appeared in front of Lin, attempting to block the attack, but was instantly engulfed by the flames. Almost instantly, Lin received a system notification that a skeletal warrior had been killed. Lin hastily retreated, feeling a bit surprised. Nonetheless, this was the final boss with the most extreme attributes he had encountered so far. The first skill alone was formidable. How powerful then were the remaining four? Regardless, he had no choice but to face the challenge head-on. He moved to a relatively safer location and summoned the rest of his skeleton army. The skeletal warriors charged forward, their great swords raised high. Just as their blades were about to strike the archmage, a blue light flashed, and a blue protective shield appeared around the final boss. This was his second skill, a magic shield. The attacks from several skeletal warriors hit the shield, but it was as if they were striking water. Their swords were repelled backward, however. Their attacks seemed to have no effect. Lin frowned. Even the rampage strikes of the skeletal warriors were unable to breach the magic shield. This caused him to ponder. With 40,000 spirit points, the magic shield seemed even stronger than the knight profession's limitless defense skill. Digging into his kit, Lin had only one skill that could ignore the magic shield. He raised his hand, a blue flame burning in his palm. This was no other than Soul Flame, and within seconds, the flame was sent flying towards the elemental archmage. Clearly, the archmage had not anticipated any skill breaking through his magic shield, showing a surprised expression as the flame bypassed his defenses, causing him visible pain and intense trembling, yet he didn't scream out loud. Suddenly, the archmage sneered, repeating, "Kill me, telling Lin that killing him was the only way to get answers. Not wasting this precious opportunity, as the soul flame landed on the archmage, Lin ordered all skeletal warriors to retreat, and then the skeletal mages launched their assault. Their attacks, hundreds of elemental spells of 4 different types, overwhelmed the already weakened magic shield. The shield twisted and deformed, eventually shattering. Seizing the moment, hundreds of skeletal warriors leaped towards the archmage from below, but then something unexpected happened. Suddenly, a purple light struck one of the skeletal mages, which then caused it not only to freeze in place, but also to stop it from channeling its spells. Turned out, the archmage had used a skill specifically countering mages, a silencing type crowd control spell. The archmage in the sky incessantly cast the same spells, his staff emitting continuous light, silencing the skeletal mages one after another. Meanwhile, as hundreds of skeletal warriors approached him, a gust of wind swept through, freezing them in the air with chains made out of wind materializing around them. This was another of the archmage's skills, wind shackles. Everything happened so quickly. Before Lin could react, all the skeletal warriors and mages were immobilized, leaving Lin at a loss. He frantically thought about his options, summon the spirit general, but the general's ability could only remove effects like stuns, not silence or wind shackles. Summon the guardian? That wouldn't work either. The guardian won't be able to hit the target. Lin realized he had no choice but to rely on himself, facing the final boss alone for the first time. With a scythe that probably won't even land a scratch on the boss, perhaps only able to tickle him, and only a few skills at his disposal with no corpses nearby, Soul Flame was his only option. Thankfully, Soul Flame could bypass the magic shield. Lin repeatedly used Soul Flame while spamming, the flame causing visible pain to the boss in the sky. Suddenly, enduring the pain, the archmage raised his staff and began casting a spell, creating a star pattern underneath his foot, and then unleashing his ultimate skill, Meteor Fall. This Meteor Fall was infinitely more powerful than the one used by the mage in that party of 5 who ambushed him earlier. The sky turned red as countless flaming meteors rained down. With a powerful and high-level mage's AoE skill like this, the chance of escaping is close to none. Lin didn't even bother trying to dodge. Instead, he took several potions from his backpack. First, he strengthened his skeletal armor a couple of times, almost as if he was applying Viagra to his skeletal armor. The skeletal armor expanded several times, bigger than ever. Waiting as the meteor landed on him, the enhanced skeletal armor cracked, but luckily, it didn't break on impact. Seeing that the attack didn't harm him, the boss realized there was a skill protecting Lin and immediately used a silencing skill on him. However, the boss didn't know that Lin's skeletal armor was immune to all crowd control and negative effects. As powerful as this ability was, the accuracy fell short. Only a few meteors managed to hit. Each meteor that fell was blocked by the skeletal armor, rapidly depleting Lin's mana. He continuously consumed recovery potions as meteors kept falling on him. Just like a turn-based game, the both of them exchanged blows one after another, a series of explosions of flame bursting before his eyes. Undeterred, he kept spamming the two spells. It was clearly a war of attrition that began between them, a test of who could last the longest. After several minutes, the meteor shower in the sky finally ceased, and the boss reached his limit, emitting a painful scream. As the smoke and dust cleared, Lin stood unscathed, although his skeletal armor showed numerous cracks. Despite this, he was rock solid. The Archmage's body slowly descended from the sky. What followed was a vast amount of blue energy escaping from his body, which caused his body to become more transparent every second. At his final moment, he let go, and his staff fell from the sky. Lin couldn't discern from the final expression or if the Archmage still held any consciousness, but he might have seen a faint smile. Either way, it no longer mattered. The system announced the defeat of the level 39 Elemental Archmage, awarding 3.9 million experience. Lin first recalled his skeletons to the summoning space, then inspected the loots. There were 4 items in total: a damaged Divine Flame Staff, a Time and Space Crystal, a Divine Talent Stone, and a brilliant intermediate skill scroll. Even with his usual composure, Lin was taken aback by his loot. As he read through each item's description, his astonishment grew. The damaged Divine Flame Staff was actually a legendary weapon, unfortunately, in its current state. It's broken. Perhaps there was a chance to repair it? Lin held the staff while walking towards the other items. Turned out that the Time and Space Crystal could be crafted into a teleportation stone, but the destination was unknown. The Divine Talent Stone, also a legendary item, guaranteed 100% talent awakening during the 3rd class transfer. However, Lin hadn't even undergone his 2nd class transfer, yet he had stumbled upon such a valuable item. As for the final loot, the brilliant intermediate skill scroll had 100% of obtaining a random skill. He found it hard to grasp how a level 39 boss could drop a legendary weapon in such items. Compared to the first 3 items, Lin felt the brilliant intermediate skill scroll was the least valuable, even though it would cost tens of millions to buy from the exchange. Shortly after, perhaps seeing the meteor fall earlier and hearing the commotion, Yi rushed over, panting and looking somewhat anxious. Seeing Lin safe and sound, she breathed a sigh of relief. But soon her face turned into utter shock when she pointed at the staff, recognizing the Divine Flame Staff. She was both confused and excited. Her question was why this legendary staff appeared in this dungeon. However, Lin noticed that she specifically mentioned the broken Divine Flame Staff, and not the other items, clearly valuing it the most. Prompted by this, Lin asked her if she knew this staff. Holding the staff, which looked like it could shatter at any moment, especially where a magic crystal should have been set at the top but was now empty, Lin handed over the staff to Yi to allow her to examine it closely. She excitedly shared that it was exactly as she had read in the archives, and her grandfather had also mentioned this weapon. The Divine Flame Staff was once the exclusive weapon of a divine-level fire mage, Shu Yan, the Divine Mage. As history records stated, after a great battle, Shu Yan, along with the Divine Flame Staff, disappeared, and no one knew his whereabouts. Suddenly, the staff began to glow, becoming incredibly hot. The entire staff turned scorching hot, causing her to instinctively drop it with a cry of surprise. The staff hovered in mid-air, casting brilliant light, and shortly after, a figure emerged. On closer look, this figure bore a striking resemblance to the previous Archmage, but appeared less ferocious and somewhat aged. Lin, anticipating danger, immediately reinforced the skeletal armor on both himself and Yi, pulling her behind him while conjuring soul flame in his hand. To their surprise, the figure spoke. With a deep voice, he urged Lin not to be alarmed. Turned out his identity was Shu Yan, the divine-level fire mage. However, despite his past, he was now merely a remnant soul. Yi peeked from behind Lin, her surprise evident at recognizing the legendary mage. Seeing the young girl recognizing him, he curiously asked how she knew of him. As it turned out, Yi had seen his portrait in a museum and heard of his story from her grandfather. Lin had also heard about this historical figure, mentioned in history textbooks. Both then bowed to pay their respect. Shu Yan gestured dismissively, pleased yet wistful, commenting on how gratifying it was that people still remembered him after so many years. He explained his existence tied to the divine flame staff and the power of the dungeon, which had sustained him until now. However, he mentioned his time was running short after expending too much energy. He implored them to listen carefully to what he had to say. As they listened intently, Shu Yan revealed that a temporal rift had appeared on the third battlefield, connecting the human world to the abyssal world. The elemental demon lord, leading millions of demons, launched a massive invasion. This sudden invasion caught them off guard, leaving them no choice. Shu Yan led the first mage legion to confront them. In the end, they together unleashed a forbidden spell, annihilating the demon lord and his army. However, he looked saddened. The story reminding the duo the scene witnessed upon entering the dungeon was likely the final part of that war. Shu Yan slowly lifted a stone, a time and space crystal he had obtained during that great battle. The crystal contained coordinates within the abyss. If crafted into a teleportation stone by an alchemist, it could facilitate direct travel to the abyss. Lin was surprised but understood this essentially acted as a key to launch a counterattack into the abyss, not through the boundary's entrance, but directly into its heart of the abyss. Lin thought Shu Yan intended for him to hand over the crystal to the Empire's higher echelons, but Shu Yan shook his head. As it turned out, besides the time and space crystal, there was also the divine talent stone. Both were soul-bound and usable only by Lin, effectively a worthless rock to anyone else other than him. Switching the topic, Shu Yan smiled and inquired if Lin had awakened a talent. Lin nodded since it was unnecessary to hide it. Shu Yan got his answer and didn't pry into the specific talent, but expressed high regard for Lin's abilities based on the previous battle. He was pleased, advising Lin to awaken another talent upon his second-class transfer at level 40. He knew this would be challenging, but still, he urged Lin to try his best. Doing so, by his third-class transfer at level 70, he could use the divine talent stone to awaken a third talent. With the enhancement of 3 talents, Lin's strength would reach an astonishing level. Shu Yan's eyes filled with hope for the future as he reminisced about history's first triple-talented top-tier powerhouse, wishing Lin to be the second. Lin could sense he was held in high regard. Nonetheless, he committed to doing his best. Satisfied, Shu Yan nodded, but Lin was puzzled as to why he was chosen, given the dungeon had existed for a long time, and many had cleared it in the past. Shu Yan, with the pride of a divine-level mage, disdainfully and even angrily stated that he deemed those others unworthy, considering it a waste to give the items to them. He'd rather let these treasures rot here than hand them over to useless trash. Oof, that's some harsh words. Anyway, his tone shifted as he reminisced about a talented young girl who had caught his attention, regretting that, unlike Lin, she was part of a team at the time. Shu Yan, comparing Lin with the memory of the girl who wielded dual blades, noted a resemblance. Prompted by this, Lin showed a photo of his sister, asking if she was the one. Shu Yan nodded with a hint of regret, acknowledging her talent, but noting she fell just short. Upon learning she was Lin's sister, Shu Yan smiled, sharing that she had reached level 35 a few months ago, leaving Lin relieved and surprised by her rapid progress. I thought his time was running out? Anyway, Shu Yan emphasized that level isn't always crucial. Lin, at only level 27, had managed to solo a level 30 hell-level difficulty dungeon, a feat unparalleled in the human race, possibly even beyond the capabilities of top human talents. He remarked on Lin's unique profession and its potential for growth, but pointed out a critical weakness in Lin's skeletons, their susceptibility to crowd control. He suggested that in the future, if he could acquire a skill or talent for cleansing, could mitigate this flaw. Even without him saying, Lin had already recognized this flaw had also reached from his battles. Shu Yan imparted much wisdom and experience, ultimately explaining he chose Lin to obtain the loot. Satisfied, he infused the last bit of his soul into the staff, telling them doing so would make the staff become even stronger if Lin found a way to repair it in the future. Unfortunately, the staff wouldn't provide Lin much use, so he expressing his hope that Lin would find someone worthy of being the new owner of this legendary weapon. This was the divine-level mage's final request. Lin and Yi paid their respects once more to the staff, honoring Shu Yan's last wishes. After storing the staff in his inventory, Yi reflected on the sacrifices Shu Yan had made for humanity, to which Lin nodded in agreement. He believed that it was the bloodshed and sacrifices of these heroes that allowed humanity to survive amidst distant threats. He was also convinced that humanity would grow stronger and eventually launch a counterattack into the abyss. Upon exiting the dungeon, Lin and Yi attracted considerable attention. Many were incredulous that just the two of them had cleared the dungeon. Recognizing Lin, some recalled how he also managed to solo the hell-level difficulty outpost dungeon on the first battlefield. Among the crowd were people Lin was familiar with, including Xu Xing'an and his squad. Surprised to see Lin had soloed another hell-level dungeon. The duo walked over and greeted them. After that, Lin quickly suggested to Yi that they should be on their way now, recalling his past experiences of trouble following every time they left the dungeon, eliciting a giggle from her. However, before they could get far, several figures appeared in the sky. Several high-level professionals announced an enemy attack, urging everyone to prepare for battle. Meanwhile, in the distance, a massive portal opened near the boundary, with countless demons exuding a bloodthirsty aura, slowly emerging. The demons, thinking they were in for an easy feast, perhaps hadn't anticipated encountering our boy Lin. He was not one to let such an opportunity for free experience and military merit slipping by. Before the abyssal demons could even take a proper look at the Yuan battlefield, the ones in the very front were pierced through by numerous greatswords, and many let out agonized screams. Confused about what was going on, looking down, the demons were overwhelmed by the sudden appearance of skeletons holding greatswords, swinging at them. At first, they thought they had arrived at the Yuan battlefield, not a slaughterhouse. But unlucky for them, this will be a bloodbath. Nonetheless, almost 100 skeletal warriors launched an assault, hacking and slashing at the demons with rampage strikes. Some skeletons even grabbed onto the demons' mounts to prevent them from flying away, while others delivered furious blows to swiftly dispatch the ugly bastards. In an instant, over a dozen level 38 abyssal wolf demons were slain, with Lin receiving system notifications, gaining 380,000 experience and 50 military merits for each kill. Lin and Yi stood back, watching the skirmish ahead, surprised by another encounter with a portal so soon. This made them wonder if they would meet the Flame Demon Lord again. Meanwhile, near the dungeon gate, a few dozen human professionals, alerted by the warning, paused momentarily before drawing their weapons, ready for combat. Xu Xing'an drew his longsword and raised his shield, but then suddenly thought of something. He quickly turned around, looking behind him, realizing where the portal appeared was also exactly where Lin was headed. His party members were also worried about Lin, but considering his capability to solo 2 hell-level difficulty dungeons, they trusted in Lin that the two of them would be fine. However, they also knew there was a vast difference between ordinary and high-level demons, yet right now, all they could do was pray Lin wouldn't encounter any high-level demons. Xu Xing'an couldn't help but worry for Lin, hoping for his safety as he looked towards the distance. On the other side, Lin observed the massive portal continuously having demons pouring in, noting it was at least twice the size of the one they encountered previously. This time, Lin didn't throw the demon corpses back into the portal, preferring to wait for the demons to come out before killing them to avoid attracting the Flame Demon Lord, who had kicked his ass twice in the past. Sooner or later, he will beat the Flame Demon Lord, but probably not anytime soon. Sometimes even Lin got to play safe. After the first wave of demons was killed, another batch of demons, with low-level abyssal creatures at the forefront and low-level demons following, slowly emerged from the portal. The skeletal warriors piled up the corpses of the previously slain demons at the forefront. As these abyssal creatures approached, Lin raised his right hand and used corpse explosion. The demons, thinking they had found an easy meal upon entering the battlefield, were instantly killed in an explosion before they could even react. Lin marveled at the ease of gaining 1,800 military merits so easily. Not long after, behind the portal, Lin could see numerous pairs of crimson-red eyes, signaling another wave of free experience. Lin continued using corpse explosion, efficiently grinding at ease, as a result, allowing both of them to gain a star in their badge. Yi marveled at how an average demon hunting squad might not earn 10,000 military merits in over a year on the Yuan battlefield. Yet with Lin carrying her, she had effortlessly ascended to the rank of lieutenant, and now she had just gotten her first star. Lin, however, interrupted her, his expression turning serious as he spotted a powerful demon emerging from the portal. Turned out, several figures appeared, all level 40 high-level demons, including the abyssal shadow demon Lin had encountered before, and a new, incredibly ugly but massive demon with several long, blade-sharp arms, known as the Abyssal Blade Demon. These high-level demons slowly stepped out of the portal onto the Yuan battlefield, expecting the Abyssal army waiting for them, but instead found a field of mangled corpses. Temporarily stunned, they thought there must have been a powerful human professional somewhere ambushing them. They looked around cautiously, however. Upon noting low-level human professionals in the distance, they wondered what might have happened here. Lin didn't answer the demon, but rather let out a smirk, assuring them they would soon understand what was happening. The demons, underestimating Lin for being only level 27, laughed menacingly. Before they could continue their mockery, a massive explosion rocked the entire area. The high-level demons screamed in agony, followed by several more blasts, dying before they could even struggle or resist outside the portal. Yi looked at the high-level demons as if they were idiots, commenting on their stupidity. Yet she realized perhaps no one would believe a level 27 could instantly kill so many demons and high-level demons at once. Suddenly, the portal twisted more violently and became unstable, indicating it was about to disappear, yet they could still see many demons were still on the other side. Lin had a bright idea, which he had his skeletons throw all nearby corpses into the portal, including the bodies of the recently killed high-level demons. He then triggered corpse explosions several times again, resulting in dozens of system notifications and a sudden increase of 7,000 in their military merits. The good news of their promotion was swiftly followed by a sudden sensation from Lin's inventory space, prompting him to retrieve a teleportation stone, no other than the gift from Mo Yun for Lin and Yi, to join in the campaign against the battlefield Ghost Emperor. The stone's intense glow suggested Mo Yun might have located the Ghost Emperor and needed their help. Without hesitation, after exchanging glances, Lin crushed the teleportation stone, and in the next moment, they were transported away from the third battlefield. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon gate, the crowd remained on high alert, yet no demons appeared. Deciding to advance a bit closer to the portal, they were puzzled to find the area previously swarming with a massive portal was now empty, leaving behind only a pile of demon corpses, some stacked into small mounds, including a couple of high-level demons. As everyone wondered who could have achieved such a feat, Shi Xing'an and his party exchanged knowing glances, recognizing how familiar this scene was. Perhaps the work of Lin's corpse explosion. They were almost certain this was all done by Lin, which made them realize their concerns for him were indeed unnecessary. Meanwhile, on the second battlefield, Mo Yun, enveloped in a sphere of light alongside her unicorn, appeared quite anxious. Frowning, she looked at the teleportation stone in her hand, wondering, why haven't they arrived yet? However, she didn't have much time to ponder, only able to tuck the teleportation stone into her pocket before continuing to engage in battle. The level 39 battlefield Ghost Emperor world boss in the distance was extremely powerful, with all 4 attributes reaching up to 20,000 and 25,000, along with 3 powerful skills and 2 special traits. Reduce physical damage taken by 50%, but receive 50% more damage from holy-type attacks. But that's not her enemy for now. As it turned out, apart from Mo Yun, another team had also arrived at the scene shortly after she spotted the world boss. However, instead of aiding Mo Yun in taking down the boss, they began attacking her instead. Among them was Richard, whom we hadn't seen for a long time. Do you still remember him? If you didn't either way, he's just a coward, spoiled brat. However, a couple of months passed. He was now level 20, getting carried by the high-level professionals from his father's guild. Next second, a hurricane of arrows fired toward Mo Yun's way, and the mages also cast skill toward her, which exploding in the air like fireworks. Mo Yun rode her unicorn, swiftly weaving through the sky, dodging every attack. These people were not as individually strong as Mo Yun, but they had the advantage in numbers. Seizing an opportunity, Mo Yun's unicorn unleashed a powerful shockwave, but it was collectively blocked by the barrier set up by the entire team. This team, around a dozen or so people, had a complete raid party set up, with knights, range DPS, melee DPS, support, and healers. This made it difficult for Mo Yun to break through for the moment. Meanwhile, not far away, The other party came along with Richard had already started attacking the world boss. The sudden turn of events made Mo Yun anxious. The battlefield ghost emperor would appear randomly, each time only for 30 minutes. Missing this opportunity meant an indefinite wait for the next. The bothersome professionals of the Dynasty Guild clearly did not want her to share in the loot. Suddenly, another spell was shot towards her, and Mo Yun hurriedly dodged. She wondered again, why hadn't Lin and Yi arrived yet? Suddenly, not far from her, the space twisted, indicating someone was teleporting over. The next second, the duo appeared in mid-air. However, several skills that were aimed at Mo Yun were now directed at the newly arrived duo. Mo Yun quickly used a magic shield towards the duo, which allowed them to float in mid-air, while having a protective barrier around them, and then she rode her unicorn towards them, trying to block the attacks for the two as much as possible. She was just in time to block all of the attacks with her magic shield, although several spots of her magic shield had tiny cracks. But good news was that everyone was safe. Below them, Richard, who was surrounded by his party, looked up at the newly arrived duo in the sky with frustration seeing their arrival. At that moment, Mo Yun unleashed another skill, and the light orb on the unicorn rapidly expanded, enveloping the duo within it. Seeing the sudden appearance of the two, although Richard hadn't figured out who they were, to inquire about what had happened there, Mo Yun briefly explained that she had first discovered the battlefield ghost emperor, and it just so happened that members of the Dynasty Guild were also nearby. Upon hearing this, the two immediately understood that the Dynasty Guild was trying to steal the boss. Such incidents were pretty common too. Moreover, when it comes to a world boss that drops Nirvana crystals, it's something all the major guilds vie for. However, upon hearing it was the Dynasty Guild in their way, Lin's expression turned cold. He always despised those who bullied the weak and were tyrannical yet cowardly. Hearing Lin's tone, Mo Yun curiously asked if Lin had any beef with the Dynasty Guild. Lin recalled an incident at the West Sea Mine dungeon before he entered Xiajing Academy, where he was leveling up at the time. He encountered the Dynasty Guild blocking the dungeon entrance to monopolize the Goblin King core. During the altercation, the Dynasty Guild not only injured many professionals trying to enter, but also resulted in one death. In a fit of anger, Lin annihilated the entire team, while also obtaining the Goblin King's core. Since Lin had killed members of the Dynasty Guild before, so there was already enmity between them. Unexpectedly, he had once again encountered them here. Seeing them ignoring him, another furious shout suddenly erupted from below, no other than Richard, angrily calling out Lin's name for the second time. Turning towards the voice, Lin saw a face contorted with rage, its veins bulging and quite an ugly sight. But he quickly recognized him as Richard, whom he had encountered during the final exam a month ago. Richard was glancing at him with deep hatred. Lin was puzzled as to why he would be here in the first place. Mo Yun explained that the guy yelling was the guild leader's son of the Dynasty Guild, and their guild had come in search of the Nirvana crystal specifically because of him. Mo Yun briefly mentioned that the other team was deliberately holding her back, while their second team went after the boss. Mo Yun, looking anxious, asked Lin if he had a plan. Lin, with his hands in his pockets, nonchalantly told Mo Yun to go over and prevent the other team from defeating the boss. He would handle the people below by himself, and later regroup with Mo Yun when he was done. The confident look got her remembering how Lin single-handedly swept through the abyssal army in the first battlefield before. Although she knew Lin was strong, she was unsure if he could face an entire party alone. But seeing Lin's confident demeanor, she nodded, assuring him that she wouldn't let them defeat the boss. With that, she made sure Lin and the others landed safely before she rode her unicorn towards the boss in the distance. The Dynasty Guild members tried to stop her, but Richard, blinded by rage, ordered his team to attack Lin instead. Richard drew his weapon, his anger growing as he took several steps towards Lin. He sneered, surprised to encounter Lin here, and blamed him for missing the chance to attend the Xiajing Academy. His voice grew louder, placing all the blame on Lin, and his emotions spiraled out of control, appearing almost insane. Emitting fury energy around him, he then used a skill to enter a berserk state. He refused to acknowledge any other reasons for his failures, attributing all to Lin. He believed the top scholar's position should have been his. Ning Yi looked at Richard oddly, thinking there must be something wrong with his mind since failing to get into the academy was clearly due to his lack of ability. Lin was initially puzzled by Richard's anger, but now understood it all stemmed from jealousy. Richard had been so scared by abyssal demons during the examination that he even wet himself, yet now he was blaming Lin for his own shortcomings. A truly pitiful sight. Richard then ordered everyone to kill Lin. Immediately, a knight from the team obeyed, sprinting towards Lin with a charge skill. The level 38 knight, clad in golden equipment and supported by all types of buffs, was not weak in attributes. In Richard's eyes, Lin had only been enrolled for a few months, and could be no higher than level 20, while he himself had spent months fighting with his team on the Yuan battlefield. He thought he could already see Lin's tragic death at the hands of the knight, a malicious grin spreading across his face as he watched his party slowly advance on Lin. Lin shook his head, then raised a hand and commanded, "Arise, my soldiers." Hundreds of skeletons emerged from the ground, their ominous presence enveloping the entire area. The knight leading the charge suddenly stopped in his tracks, and his face went full pale, as if seeing something terrifying, a sense of deadly danger enveloping him. In the next moment, a skeletal warrior struck him with a rampage strike, sending him flying several meters. His body landed heavily on the ground, and blood spewed from his mouth and nose as he uttered the word, monster, in a garbled voice. To everyone's surprise, just one hit, their most powerful knight on the party, didn't even withstand a single strike. They couldn't believe their eyes, and all of them halted their steps. Richard, witnessing this scene, broke out in a cold sweat. The healer on the team quickly cast a heal spell to heal the injured knight. Richard looked at the knight, then gulped hard, then turned to shout at the archers and mages in the back, asking what the hell are they waiting for. In response, a barrage of spells and arrows rained down. Lin, however, was unfazed and decided to let his skeletal mages join the fray and have some fun, and in an instant, another swarm of skeletons appeared. The next moment, the 100 or so skeletal mages cast their spells simultaneously, sending attacks of 4 different elemental spells sweeping across the Dynasty Guild, completely overwhelming them. Upon witnessing the hurricane of spells flying towards them, many instinctively thought of fleeing. However, they were overwhelmed before they could even react. Several professionals from the party utilized their skills to dodge incessantly, yet a few unlucky ones were still struck directly. The elemental spells included not only single-target attacks, but also AoE attacks, leaving very little room for them to dodge. The healer on the party continuously applied his healing abilities, tending to everyone's wounds. However, clearly it wasn't enough. As screams of agony rose one after another, fear was evident on everyone's faces. Meanwhile, Richard was encircled by a few knights with heavy shields protecting him. He turned around to look at his screaming teammates, utterly shocked. He knew for a fact that during the exam, there were only skeletal warriors, no mages. What in the world is happening? Either way, the situation was looking dire for them, as several more teammates were hit and severely injured the next moment. As a new wave of spells approached, the healer simply could not keep up. His mana was drained. If was then that the healer realized that this is unwinnable. Perhaps even 100 healers couldn't keep up with the speed of their casting. He then stopped healing and started running in the opposite direction, followed immediately by a few uninjured teammates. They no longer cared about Richard's command, nor did they wish to die here. Watching them flee hastily, Richard cursed angrily, while yelling at them, saying Lin is only level 27. Why are they so afraid? Hurry and kill him. However, his voice was ignored, and in the chaos of escape, he was even knocked down, landing on his butt. Lin watched the retreating figures, never having felt pity for his enemies who sought to kill him, even if they were human professionals. Allowing them to escape would just cause him more problems in the future. Thus, there was no need to hold back. Lin revealed a cold smirk, then raised one of his hands and was about to use corpse explosion. Richard saw this scene and quickly reminded him of the terrifying skill Lin had once used during the final exam. His face turned deathly pale, his eyes bulged, and cold sweat ran down his forehead. The next moment, he saw one of the skeletal warriors throw the corpse of one of his companions toward the fleeing group, and in an instant, Lin used corpse explosion. Richard was terrified and let out a scream, a girly scream that mingled with the sound of the explosion. After a loud boom, only 2 professionals were still standing, though they were also severely injured. They looked at Lin with terror on their faces. From the dust and ashes, a figure emerged, no other than Lin, as he slowly walked towards Richard, who was surprisingly unharmed. Clearly, Lin didn't target him. Richard involuntarily took a few steps back. It was then he noticed the badge on Lin's chest. He recognized the rank, as it was that of a 2-star lieutenant. For a moment, Richard could no longer count how many demons Lin might have killed. But one thing he knew, they stood no chance. He retreated a few more steps, then suddenly tripped and fell. Sitting on the ground, crawling backward, he looked at Lin with fear and tremblingly asked what he intended to do, then shook his head incessantly, saying there's no way Lin wants to kill him, right? Seeing Lin's lack of response, he even tried to threaten him, but before he could voice his threat, he saw a spark appear in Lin's hand, which quickly grew larger into a blue flame. He looked terrified, and all he heard was Lin telling him that he was really annoying. Meanwhile, on the other side, another party from the Dynasty Guild was engaged in battling the battlefield Ghost Emperor. They were too preoccupied to pay attention to Richard's situation. They were only aware that they were confronting Mo Yun, but unaware that Lin had already joined the fray. However, this team was also well-rounded and seemed much stronger than Richard's group, boasting a large number of members as well. The healers and support members were continuously casting spells while directing their teammates, when suddenly, a shockwave interrupted their casting. Looking up, they were surprised to see it was Mo Yun who attacked them. For the next couple of minutes, Mo Yun harassed them from the air, but it wasn't very effective. Soon, the 2 strongest second-class transfer professionals on the team immediately retaliated, pointing their weapons and turning to attack Mo Yun. A fireball spell was shot out, and it nearly shattered Mo Yun's protective shield. Seeing their attack landed, they looked disdainfully at Mo Yun, thinking it was just luck that she had broken through their young guild leader's encirclement. However, he was planning to deal with her once everyone else arrived. A few minutes passed. One of them, puzzled, asked what was happening on the other side and why no one had come over yet. At this moment, Lin had already arrived. Suddenly, something appeared in the sky and was rapidly flying towards them. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was 2 brutally battered bodies, dressed in the Dynasty Guild's uniforms. They quickly recognized these were their people, confused as to why the corpses were emitting a red light and expanding. The mage's eyes narrowed, perhaps sensing something, and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He was about to yell out something, but it was too late. In an instant, the corpses exploded with a loud bang. The massive explosion occurred amidst the crowd. Having already deployed a magical shield, the mage looked straight towards the other side and shouted, "Who is it?" Meanwhile, on the battlefield, a group of skeletal warriors appeared, encircling 2 individuals, a man and a woman. Mo Yun was the first to spot them, and once realized it was Lin and Yi, she couldn't believe that Lin had resolved the situation so quickly. She noticed that some of the skeletons were holding corpses. On a closer look, these were Dynasty Guild members. At that very moment, her gaze towards Lin was filled with a hint of fear. Lin commanded the skeletal warriors to throw a few corpses toward the enemy, and once again used corpse explosion. Following a violent explosion, Mo Yun immediately mounted her unicorn and soared into the sky to avoid being affected. Looking down, she took a deep breath, pondering over Lin's true strength. It's no wonder he could solo hell-level difficulty dungeons, and she finally knew why Yi was willing to follow him. Upon impact, the mage's magical shield shattered, and he was thrown several meters away, meanwhile shouting for support and healers. At the same time, some members reacted quickly and gathered together, barely surviving inside a group protective shield, while the less fortunate were thrown against nearby walls. A knight at the forefront yelled for everyone to regroup around him. Their formation was in disarray, with support and healers nowhere to be found. A few survivors thought they were saved, only to feel a chilling sensation upon seeing a mass of skeletal warriors approaching them from all sides. Before they could react, the skeletons charged, leaping high in the air while slashing fiercely at the protective shield. Mo Yun was momentarily stunned. Lin gestured to her and told her that it was time to deal with the battlefield Ghost Emperor. Snapping out of her shock, Mo Yun nodded. Lin, having used a detection spell, has a brief idea of the Ghost Emperor's attributes, abilities, and special traits. Standing before the Ghost Emperor, he wielded his scythe. As the skeletal warriors battled the professionals, Lin used soul-summoning skills to call forth his outpost guardian. Seeing the towering figure of the guardian, Mo Yun once again gulped hard, asking Yi how many more tricks Lin had up his sleeve, as he was now beyond her comprehension. Due to the Ghost Emperor's traits, it's better to let Mo Yun do her thing. And after a few minutes, Lin signaled Mo Yun that it was time, since she was the only one here who had holy-type abilities. With the Guardian holding the King Emperor's aggro, Mo Yun mounted her unicorn once more, ascending as the unicorn above the world boss, and began to cast a spell. Not long after, a powerful skill materialized above the Ghost Emperor's head. A powerful shockwave descended from the sky, striking the Ghost Emperor's head with formidable force. The Ghost Emperor, in pain, had half of its face burned. It gritted its teeth and angrily looked up at Mo Yun riding the unicorn in the sky, and then raised its hand to use its first skill, Life Drain. A beam of red light was shot out from the Ghost Emperor's hand towards Mo Yun. Sensing the danger, Mo Yun quickly maneuvered to narrowly avoid the skill. Lin realized the importance of slowing down the opponent. Otherwise, a hit from such a skill would be unbearable for Mo Yun. He then cast a slowing curse, and in an instant, numerous red shackles bound the Ghost Emperor's entire body. He then commanded the Guardian to keep holding on to the Ghost Emperor's aggro. The next second, the Guardian charged forward, swinging its massive cleaver. The Ghost Emperor, wanting to dodge, however, its speed was slowed significantly. Unable to move away in time, it raised an arm, trying to block the attack with its forearm. The next second, the Guardian's cleaver struck fiercely, but barely did any damage to the Ghost Emperor. Mo Yun, observing the Guardian's attack from the sky, thought that she definitely couldn't withstand such a hit if it were aimed at her. Seeing the effectiveness of the slowing curse, she wondered how many more tactics Lin had yet to reveal. The Battlefield Ghost Emperor possesses a trait that reduces physical damage by 50%. Despite not being harmed this time, it continued to roar in anger, its veins bulging and eyes bloodshot with fury. Even though it was slowed, the Guardian was still no match for it. The Ghost Emperor landed a powerful punch on the Guardian, sending it flying several meters back. Witnessing this, Lin realized the outpost Guardian was gradually becoming increasingly inadequate for the battles he faced. It might be time to seek a new soul, and the Ghost Emperor before him seemed like a suitable candidate. Meanwhile, Mo Yun's unicorn also released a protective sphere, securely guarding her. Mo Yun resumed her assault, asking Lin to continue distracting the enemy while she kept up her attacks. The duo worked seamlessly together, with Lin disrupting the Ghost Emperor's spells, and the Guardian distracting it on the ground, while Mo Yun launched continuous attacks from the sky. Several shockwaves hit the Ghost Emperor, and the unicorn's attacks, possessing holy attributes, were supposed to deal an additional 50% damage to the battlefield Ghost Emperor. However, strangely, Mo Yun's attacks never seemed to cause exceptionally high damage. Suddenly, the Ghost Emperor let out a piercing scream. This was its second skill, Bewitchment. Mo Yun was struck by the spell mid-air. She lost focus in her eyes, becoming dazed. She not only stopped attacking, but also fell from her unicorn. Lin then remembered he had forgotten to equip her with skeletal armor, realizing too late that Mo Yun was not immune to crowd control. Seeing her about to crash to the ground, Lin immediately ordered a skeletal warrior to catch Mo Yun. He quickly brought her to Yi Yi, instructing her to take care of Mo Yun. Yi Yi hurriedly took out a potion, while Lin prepared to confront the Ghost Emperor himself. As Lin grew increasingly impressed with the Ghost Emperor's strength, the idea of making it his next soul became even more appealing. Clutching his scythe, Lin then recalled the Guardian. The Ghost Emperor, somewhat surprised to see the annoying giant it was fighting had disappeared, perhaps realizing that it was one of Lin's summons. It then raised a finger to use its third skill, Void. Soon, energy swiftly formed at its fingertip, while Lin donned another layer of skeletal armor, ready to face the attack head-on. A powerful strike shot from the Ghost Emperor's fingertip, capable of annihilating any second-class transfer professional instantly, but Lin remained unscathed. The skeletal warriors, having dealt with the Dynasty Guild, began to gather around Lin. Clutching their giant swords, they slowly advanced towards the Ghost Emperor. It was their showtime. Lin then raised a hand, launching a soul flame at the Ghost Emperor to interrupt its casting. The Ghost Emperor screamed as it started to feel as if its soul was being scorched. In the next second, hundreds of skeletal warriors surrounded the Ghost Emperor, their great swords glowing red, and struck its body with a rampage strike. There was nothing the Ghost Emperor could do, other than let out angry roars. Meanwhile, Yi Yi had given Mo Yun a potion to drink. It only took her a few seconds to wake up. She quickly looked around and asked what had happened. Yi Yi explained that she was affected by the Ghost Emperor's bewitchment skill. Mo Yun broke out in a cold sweat at the realization of being bewitched. She suddenly thought of Lin, however. He seemed unbothered, efficiently commanding his skeleton army against the Ghost Emperor. Mo Yun found it hard to believe that Lin alone was completely overpowering the battlefield Ghost Emperor. Despite her amplified holy skills delivering her most potent attack, she couldn't inflict substantial damage on the Ghost Emperor. Yet, Lin managed to corner this powerful world boss single-handedly. Out of desperation, the Ghost Emperor attempted another skill, using life drain on the skeletons. Several red beams targeted the skeletons as they tried to absorb life force to heal themselves. However, it couldn't draw any life force for a simple reason. These skeletons were undead summons, inherently devoid of life. The Ghost Emperor grew visibly desperate, even resorting to using Void on itself to dodge the skeletal warrior's attacks. As it turned out, when it activated this skill, it became immune to physical attacks, and could also remove curses, a tactic that even Lin found somewhat surprising. Lin then summoned a large number of skeletal mages, and Mo Yun, observing from a distance, realized in amazement that this was how Lin usually carried Yi Yi through dungeons. Yi Yi chuckled, lamenting all they were missing was some sweet potato, which puzzled Mo Yun, but Yi Yi just chuckled without further explanation. Realizing he was taking too long, Lin intensified the attack, and the Ghost Emperor grew increasingly weaker. 5 minutes later, the battlefield Ghost Emperor fell onto the ground with a thunderous crash. The system announced the Ghost Emperor's defeat, awarding 2.6 million experience points. Lin obtained a significant amount of loot, including 2 platinum-grade weapons, the Ghost Emperor's dagger and the Ghost Emperor's longsword, both with high attributes, and a 60% skill amplification for the wielder's class, along with attached skills. Another item was the Ghost Emperor's heart, a primary material for crafting Ghost Emperor jewelry. However, the most crucial item was the Nirvana crystals. However, instead of rushing to pick up the loot, Lin raised his scythe and used the soul summoning skill on the Ghost Emperor's corpse. Surprisingly, the summoning was successful on the first attempt. The soul of the Ghost Emperor slowly emerged from its body, floating in the air. This spectral form lingered before Lin. Within seconds, a colossal soul emerged from the boss's corpse, detaching itself and standing motionless before Lin. It lowered itself by kneeling on one knee, as if awaiting orders from its master. The Ghost Emperor's attributes were undiminished, even after being a summoned creature. Remember the games from your childhood where you'd spend hours defeating bosses, only to unlock them as playable characters and then discover they were disappointingly weak? That's not happening here. Not only were the attributes undiminished, but its skills and special traits were also unchanged. Despite retaining its vulnerability to holy-type abilities, Lin was more than satisfied with this outcome. Mo Yun, witnessing all of this, was momentarily at a loss for words. Staring at Lin in disbelief, she murmured, "That's it? It's over just like that?" I'm pretty sure she didn't mean it that way. She was actually marveling at how Lin could so swiftly defeat the battlefield Ghost Emperor all by himself. Everything seemed too incredible to believe. She had one last question. How powerful was Lin really? Lin, not far away, held his scythe, summoning the Ghost Emperor's soul back into it before turning to walk towards Mo Yun. He handed her one of the Nirvana crystals. Mo Yun, in a fluster, caught it with both hands. Her expression quickly turned to surprise. The sight of the small crystal made her face flush with excitement. She had been searching for the Ghost Emperor on the Yuan battlefield for so long, and finally obtaining the Nirvana crystal meant that she now had at least 60% confidence in elevating her profession. She firmly believed she could become a Holy Spirit summoner upon her second-class transfer. Holding the Nirvana crystal, she silently vowed that the glory of her family would continue through her. Reflecting on this, Mo Yun quickly expressed her gratitude to Lin, who might not yet grasp the significance of the crystal to her. She had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Otherwise, she would have already reached level 40 and undergone her second-class transfer. Everything was ready. All she needed was the Nirvana crystal. Lin waved his hand dismissively, saying she deserved it, acknowledging that it was Mo Yun who found the boss in the first place. Recalling their previous agreement that each person would get a crystal, this was the right thing to do. He then turned his attention to the other loot. including the 2 platinum-tier weapons and a special material, glancing over at the Ghost Emperor's heart, which is the main material for the Ghost Emperor's necklace. Mo Yun stepped back with a smile, indicating she didn't intend to share these spoils. She patiently explained that the Ghost Emperor's necklace was a valuable boss-level accessory and offered to help Lin find a skilled alchemist to craft it, or suggest he ask Yi Yi to find one. Hearing this, Yi Yi giggled, informing Mo Yun that there was no need for either of them to bother, as Lin was already a disciple of White Divine. Mo Yun was taken aback by this revelation. She hadn't expected Lin to have such a status. Although she had never heard of White Divine taking disciples, she thought about it and conceded that Lin indeed possessed the qualifications. After a brief exchange of small talk, Mo Yun's tone turned serious as she glanced back at the fallen members of the Dynasty Guild. She shared her concerns with Lin, particularly about Richard's death, who was the son of the guild leader, which was not something she believed they would overlook lightly. The guild leader of the Dynasty Guild, being one of the top third-class transfer professionals, despite Lin's association with White Divine, which could offer some protection, Mo Yun feared the possibility of behind-the-scenes retaliation. Lin had already pondered over these potential threats, but appeared unconcerned. With the entire Dynasty squad wiped out, no one will find out what happened here. But there is still one problem, which is the newly acquired loot and Nirvana crystals, as well as the recently summoned Ghost Emperor could give them away. As it turned out, just minutes ago, when the battlefield Ghost Emperor was finally slain, many human professionals had received a notification about its defeat and the drop of the Ghost Emperor's heart, sparking widespread astonishment and discussion. Meanwhile, at the Dynasty Guild headquarters, the guild leader had just received the news of the battlefield Ghost Emperor's defeat with a trace of joy on his face. Despite his disappointment in Richard's academic setbacks, being rejected by several top academies, he believed that his guild was enough to train Richard independently. The squad members he had personally assigned to assist Richard had aimed to secure the Nirvana crystal for Richard's potential profession elevation. With that, attending top academies was irrelevant if he managed to evolve from a rare to a legendary profession. The guild leader was confident that his son would one day avenge his humiliations and become one of the strongest human professionals, who, unbeknownst to him, his son would never return. He signaled his secretary, optimistically expecting his son's growth from the expedition in the Yuan battlefield, and planning to commission a top alchemist to craft the Ghost King's necklace with the Ghost King's heart Richard was supposed to bring back. On the other side, back on the Yuan battlefield, Lin used corpse explosions several times to completely obliterate any trace of the bodies, ensuring no one would know what had transpired there. Apart from the 3 of them, no one was aware that it was they who had eradicated the entire squad of Dynasty Guild members. Mo Yun also promised to keep these events secret and to safely hide her crystal. After nodding to each other in agreement, they crushed their teleportation stones and left the area. In White Divine's small courtyard, the atmosphere remained relaxed with the 2 drinking tea as always. With the professional contest just 2 days away, they wondered when Lin would return. Meng Anwen couldn't help but smile at White Divine, intuitively guessing his concern about whether Lin had completed his task. Caught with his thoughts exposed, White Divine showed a rare blush. Meng Anwen then brought up the recent news of the battlefield Ghost Emperor being slain on the 3rd Yuan battlefield. He cast a meaningful glance at White Divine, hinting Lin might be involved. Just as White Divine was about to respond, a surge of energy fluctuated outside the courtyard. The next second, Lin teleported into the courtyard. He bowed and greeted them respectfully, and White Divine, returning to his serious demeanor, asked if Lin had completed the tasks assigned to him. Lin nodded and presented all the materials White Divine had requested. Satisfied with a glance, White Divine's expression changed slightly upon noticing the military badge on Lin's chest, expressing surprise to see Lin had already reached 2-star lieutenant. This was no easy feat, as it required a tremendous amount of battle against the abyssal demons to achieve, especially considering Lin had been accompanied by Yi Yi. This must have meant that Lin had slain over 400 low-ranking demons. Lin casually explained that he had actually slain several high-ranking demons along the way, leaving White Divine almost jumping with astonishment, and Meng Anwen spitting out his tea in disbelief. White Divine eagerly asked Lin to recount his experiences, while Meng Anwen quickly wiped the table with a cloth, having been startled into a rare loss of composure by Lin's story. Lin detailed what had happened in the elemental battlefield, starting from their arrival at the 3rd Yuan battlefield's border, encountering the first portal, and eventually getting attacked by Flame Demon Lord. He described how he farmed abyssal demons and luckily destabilized the portal with a corpse explosion, which forced the portal to close. He then encountered a second portal which he handled more carefully, avoiding another confrontation with the Flame Demon Lord. White Divine laughed heartily, finding the notion of someone managing to vex the Flame Demon in such a manner amusing, commenting that the Demon Lord was probably fuming. Meng Anwen also smiled, praising Lin for his actions and encouraging him to keep up the good work. Lin, with a slight smile, then turned serious and mentioned his encounter with the Shu Yan Divine Mage in the dungeon. This revelation made White Divine jump up abruptly, and Meng Anwen's teacup slipped from his hand. Both were surprised and urged Lin to elaborate. After Lin recounted his experience, the two finally calmed down. Meng Anwen turned to White Divine, trying to suppress a laugh, and eventually couldn't help but let it out. Lin, puzzled, looked at them in surprise. It turned out that White Divine had also ventured into the same dungeon years ago, but hadn't encountered the Divine Mage. White Divine snorted, remarking that he was a nobody at the time because his profession hadn't been elevated yet. Regarding the time and space crystal entrusted to Lin by the Divine Mage himself, Meng Anwen decided to personally craft it into an abyssal teleportation stone. Taking the time and space crystal from Lin, Meng Anwen conjured a small tower in his hands. Lin was momentarily startled because this very tower was no other than the powerful Divine Tower. In Meng Anwen's palm, the tiny version of the Divine Tower slowly rotated. It was unclear what Meng Anwen did, but a beam of light shot out from the Divine Tower, landing on the time and space crystal. The once dull crystal now shimmered with dazzling colors, eventually transforming into the shape of a teleportation stone. Meng Anwen handed the abyssal teleportation stone back to Lin, explaining that he had embedded the coordinates of the human world within it. Now, Lin could use it to travel back and forth between the human world and the abyss. However, there was a 1-hour cooldown between uses. Moreover, this teleportation stone could only be used by Lin himself. Lin was still dazed seeing what just happened, however. He quickly understood the immense value of this stone and sincerely thanked Meng Anwen. White Divine picked up his teacup and advised Lin to carefully hold on to the Divine Talent Stone given to him by the Divine Mage himself, which would be incredibly useful when he decides to undergo his 3rd-class transfer at level 70. As for the staff, White Divine promised to find someone to see if it could be repaired. Lin then took the staff out of his storage space and handed it to White Divine. This item was a legendary weapon, and if it could be restored, it would be immensely powerful. The human race had very few legendary weapons, so having this weapon repaired was significant. Finding someone destined to wield it would also fulfill the Divine Mage's last wish. Lin then produced another item he had recently acquired, no other than the Ghost Emperor's heart. This item was green crystal-shaped, hard as a diamond, with vein-like patterns running across it. Upon seeing the item, Meng Anwen glanced at White Divine and chuckled, remarking that he had told him that Lin was the one who had slain the battlefield Ghost Emperor. White Divine coughed twice before swiftly changing the topic, inquiring if Lin had acquired any Nirvana crystals. Lin did not hide the truth, revealing that 5 had dropped in total, with Yi Yi and Mo Yun each taking 1, leaving him with 3. White Divine seemed to make an important decision, asking Lin for 2 of the crystals to assist with Lin's 2nd-class transfer. Taking a deep breath and clenching his fists, as if about to lose something valuable, White Divine promised Lin that he had an 80% chance of having Lin elevate his profession during the 2nd-class transfer, and a 30% chance of awakening a second talent. Lin was momentarily surprised, since Mo Yun had said that even with her family's help, she only assured a 60% chance of professional elevation. Without mentioning the possibility of awakening a second talent, perhaps even she didn't believe it was possible. Seeing White Divine's expression, Lin knew that this time, White Divine must have had to pay a significant price to help him, in addition to everything White Divine had already done for him. Lin was deeply moved, respectfully bowing to White Divine in gratitude, while saying thank you, Lord White Divine. At the same time, Meng Anwen smiled and pushed a teacup toward Lin, his glance at the cup on the table perhaps carrying a hint of implication. Instantly, As if realizing something, Lin stepped forward, picked up the teacup, and offered it to White Divine. "Disciple Lin greets teacher," he said. White Divine, satisfied, accepted the teacup and drank it all in one gulp. Witnessing this, Lin felt a warmth in his heart, reminiscing about his deceased grandmother, his older sister, Yi Yi. And now, he had gained another family member in this world. White Divine watched his beloved disciple with satisfaction, advising him to rest well tonight as they would head to Nanhong City early the next morning. He encouraged Lin to perform well in the professional contest and to bring back the championship title. Lin nodded, respectfully bowed to both, and then departed. After Lin left, White Divine's expression broke into a content smile. Mang Anwen also teased and asked him if he was happy now. White Divine, the man he is, retorted that he was not happy at all, as he would have to spend all his savings in the coming years. Mang Anwen knew this old friend too well, and could tell that White Divine was actually delighted, even if he pretended otherwise. After teasing him a bit, Mang Anwen mentioned something Lin hadn't shared with them. Lin, Mo Yun, and Yi Yi had clashed with the Dynasty Guild over the battlefield Ghost Emperor, resulting in conflict and the death of the guild's young guildmaster. White Divine was puzzled as to why Lin hadn't mentioned it to them. From the tone, it's obvious that White Divine was dismissive of the Dynasty Guild, confident he could easily wipe them out with a single slap. Mang Anwen believed Lin intended to resolve the issue himself without troubling the both of them, advising White Divine not to intervene or make a fuss, letting Lin handle it. Should Lin be unable to resolve it, they would then step in. White Divine nodded. He liked Lin's way of doing things. Mang Anwen laughed heartily, continuing to jest with White Divine, clearly showing their disregard for the Dynasty Guild. The next day arrived swiftly, and countless individuals flocked to Nanhong City. Journalists, spectators, and contestants alike, all gathered for the once-in-a-few-years professional contest. The five-man party, including Lin and Yi Yi, along with Tao Tao, Oliver, and Emma, exchanged greetings and chatted for a bit. They had never witnessed such a scene before. Countless people and a multitude of human professionals from all over the world. It was said that this year more than 100,000 teams had registered to compete, and the preliminary rounds were set to eliminate 90% of them. Only those teams that successfully passed the first phase of the test could stay. Failure meant immediate elimination. They lined up and awaited their turn to enter. After nodding to each other, the five of them stepped into the portal together, and the scenery before their eyes changed instantaneously. A long corridor appeared before them. The first phase of the contest was straightforward. To pass, they simply needed to defeat all the monsters present. Oliver promptly sprang into action, applying buff on everyone. Auras appeared around every one of them. Strength, agility, and defense enhancement, alongside countless other buffs. Just as Lin was about to summon his skeletons, Tao Tao interrupted him. Tao Tao didn't want Lin to do all the work. She wanted them to try on their own first, and if they couldn't handle it, then they would ask for his help. Hearing this, Lin nodded in agreement. Lin followed at the back of the party, and soon they encountered their first monster, which astonishingly resembled an abyssal hound, however. This little thing was significantly smaller in size. The casting of a detection spell revealed it was actually a simulated abyssal hound, and not the real thing, with much lower levels and attributes. Tao Tao judged it wouldn't be difficult to deal with. The team instantly sprang into action, with Tao Tao activating her charge skill, charging forward with tremendous force and colliding with the abyssal hound. She then immediately followed up with a shield bash, striking the creature on its head with her shield, and plunging it into a stunned state. Suddenly, a shadow appeared beside it, no other than Yi Yi, who had stealthily approached the hound from behind. Her dual daggers plunged into the creature, instantaneously dispatching it. What followed was a hint of relief that crossed everyone's faces. It seemed like they were in for an easy run. However, based on Lin's experience, he suspected that this wouldn't be this simple throughout. Meanwhile, outside, the spectator seats were filled to capacity, and a giant screen displayed densely packed text listing the names of the team captains. Each team had a number next to its name, which changed from 0 to 1 when the first monster was killed. However, there were also those teams who got eliminated, returning to the party, employing the skill Internal Explosion, quickly finishing the second. The remaining one was initially immobilized by Emma, then quickly slain by Tao Tao using a swift strike. What a rare sight, Our boy Lin finally got some rest, but how long do you think this will last? Meanwhile, Meng Anwen and White Divine were observing the preliminary selection from the small courtyard. White Divine, noticing Lin's team only scored 23 points while the leading teams had already amassed over 40, began to grumble, questioning why is Lin's team slacking so much. He got a bit anxious and also annoyed seeing their points not going up. White Divine turned to Meng Anwen with a smile, asking if he could secretly look into the Divine Tower to reveal what was happening inside. Meng Anwen firmly refused, as that would be considered cheating. While blowing on his tea, which steamed with heat, he seemed unperturbed, unlike White Divine, who was walking back and forth this entire time. After all, the preliminary selection wasn't a race. Making it through was all that mattered. He then asked White Divine if he lacked confidence in Lin. However, White Divine laughed heartily, raising his arm and clenching his fist, saying he was confident in his disciple, yet he jested that Lin would be in trouble if he didn't bring home first place. As we returned to Lin and his team, everyone was noticeably exhausted, far from the ease they initially felt, except for Yi Yi and Lin. Tao Tao's arms were numb from holding her shield for an extended period, and Emma was visibly fatigued from having to apply crowd control to the mobs, meanwhile keeping up with the healing duties. Oliver was in no better shape either, as he was also strained, constantly replenishing the buffs onto everyone, with his mana and spirit points nearly depleted. After several battles against the gradually increasing abyssal hellhound, they finally encountered the boss, an abyssal dog demon, however. Just like the hellhounds they've been battling against, the demon was simulated as well. As they were prepared for battle, they found themselves in poor condition. As the ugly creature before them slowly approached, they knew this was the final boss they needed to defeat to pass the preliminaries. Lin looked at his teammates and knew they had done their best, and they were nearly at their limit. Except for Lin and Yi Yi, the team had never encountered an abyssal dog demon, and were astonished to see it could summon multiple abyssal hellhounds. Emma looked towards Tao Tao, asking what they should do next. With sweat beading on her forehead, Tao Tao was acutely aware of their dwindling state after numerous fights against the hellhounds. She knew with their current condition, they had no chance of beating the final boss. As she contemplated her next move, Lin approached from behind and patted Tao Tao on the shoulder, and with a look of surprise, she turned to see Lin had already stepped in front of her, instructing everyone to rest on the spot, assuring them he would take over from here. Looks like it's showtime for our boy Lin again. Seeing Lin take charge, Emma and Oliver promptly sat down on the spot, gasping for breath and admitting they no longer had the energy to move. They expressed their confidence in Lin, asserting that with him there, everything would be all right. Tao Tao, rendered speechless by the scene, shook her head, and then, with a light blush on her cheek, she thanked Lin for stepping in, especially considering they had previously boasted about the challenge being easy enough to possibly not require Lin's help. Lin didn't say much in response, simply smiling at his teammates, reassuring them that this was what exactly he was here to do. Seeing the abyssal demon, Lin didn't even bother summoning his entire skeletal army. Within seconds, he casually summoned 3 skeletal warriors. Their sudden appearance and the aura they emitted caused Tao Tao and the others to involuntarily step back. Tao Tao watched everything unfold and gulped, visibly intimidated by the 3 skeletons that seemed even more daunting than the demon itself. This inevitably led the team to speculate just how powerful Lin had become, and whether his other skeletons were equally powerful. As the team watched in astonishment, the skeletal warriors had already charged into battle, meeting the hellhounds head-on. The collision was brief. A simple slash from the skeletal warriors split the hellhound in half. Sitting afar, Tao Tao couldn't believe her eyes. It seemed like Lin's skeletons could take out a hellhound that would take them otherwise several minutes to deal with, simply just with a single strike. Within milliseconds, all of the hellhounds that were summoned were now dispatched, leaving only the final boss. It seems like whoever simulated the demons also simulated their intelligence, as the demon quickly dove towards Lin, clearly recognizing him as the master of these powerful summonses. However, before the demon could get anywhere near Lin, a skeletal warrior had already set the target on it, covered the distance of tens of meters instantly, and with a powerful rampage strike, effortlessly eliminated the demon with a single blow. The team watched incredulously as not just the hellhounds, but even the boss was downed with a single strike. As the corpses of the abyssal demons vanished, a voice resonated in the area, telling them that they had passed the assessment. Meanwhile, The leaderboard outside also updated, showing Lin's team suddenly leaping to first place from hundreds of places down. Lin's team, now at the top of the rankings, became the focus of attention. They were surprised to see a team manage to defeat the boss so quickly. However, Lin's own name became particularly conspicuous to many spectators, feeling they had heard of this name from somewhere before. When Lin and everyone were teleported out, they immediately saw their rank on the leaderboard. The three of them were still shocked, given that Lin had dispatched the boss in less than 5 seconds. With the preliminary selection concluded, the focus is now shifted to the individual impressive performance. He anticipated seeing him again in the individual competition later this afternoon. The man, who seemed confident in his supremacy in this level bracket, was determined to race Lin again this afternoon. Well, we all know little bro is gonna lose anyway. Smile, softly saying, "Long time no see, little bro." Seeing the woman, Lin quickened his pace and wrapped his arms around Mo-Han in a tight embrace, calling out, "Sister," with all the longing and emotions. It was as if time stood still in that moment, tears quietly tracing down his face. We had never seen our boy shed tears. Perhaps this marks the first time we seen our boy in tears. As the wind rustled through the leaves, Mo-Han let out a smile and slowly returned her brother's embrace. She also missed Lin very much. After a while, they found a place to sit, and Mo-Han playfully noted Lin's height. He now stood a whole head taller than her. They chatted and laughed, eventually sitting side by side under the setting sun, sharing their recent stories. However, Lin didn't speak much. It was Mo-Han doing all the talking. Suddenly, Mo-Han turned to Lin with a smile, teasingly commenting on his quiet nature and how it might hinder him from finding a girlfriend, then gave him a wink. Lin shook his head, happy to see his sister the same way she had always been. He then asked how she knew he would be there. Through their conversation, Lin realized his sister had always kept an eye on him, aware of his accomplishments as the national top scholar and his admission into Xiajing Academy. However, this made Lin a bit frustrated. On one hand, he was touched by her attentiveness, yet puzzled as to why she hadn't reached out to him, not even with a letter or a phone call. Mo-Han sighed deeply as well, hinting at a complicated reason behind her silence. Eventually, she explained she was in a prodigy program, and that her mentor's strict requirements had kept her intensely focused on leveling up, leaving her regretful for not reaching out to Lin sooner. This got Lin very curious, as he wanted to know what level is Mo-Han right now. However, when he asked about his sister's level, only led to a playful refusal from Mo-Han, which left him no choice but to prompt him to use a detection spell. To his surprise, he couldn't discern her level or any information other than her profession, suggesting she either wore an item that capable of blocking detection, or her level was significantly higher than his. However, Lin noticed her profession was now a holy blade dancer, a surprise given he remembered her initial legendary profession as the blade dancer. His excitement bubbled over when he speculated if she had elevated her profession during her second-class transfer. Mo-Han smiled and said she got a bit lucky. However, this left Lin astounded, surprised that his sister could level up so rapidly. Mo-Han then whispered to Lin and asked if he had already awakened a talent. Lin nodded. She then revealed her talent allowed her to significantly accelerate her leveling speed, allowing her to advance much faster than others, as he knew that talent awakening is rare, with a wide range of talents, some powerful and others less so. Those who awaken talents and obtain favorable ones are considered a 1-in-a-million prodigy. Both Lin and his sister belonged to this exceptional category. Mo-Han emphasized the importance of keeping their talents secret from others, advice Lin took to heart with a solemn nod. As they continued their conversation, footsteps approached. 4 individuals in uniform attire and cloaks walked toward them, each exuding confidence and a compelling aura. The leader of the group smiled at Mo-Han before asking about Lin. And who might this be? His gaze shifted towards Lin. Mo-Han introduced Lin proudly as her brother. Upon learning Lin was Mo-Han's brother, the man's demeanor towards Lin visibly softened, followed by a friendly handshake. As he did so, he also noticed the military badge on Lin's chest. He was surprised to find Lin was a 2-star lieutenant. His initial hostility turned to friendliness upon learning Lin was Mo-Han's brother, now mixed with respect and a hint of surprise. Despite his feelings, he politely excused himself, expressing a hope that Mo-Han to return sooner to discuss tactics for the next day's competition before departing. Lin had also noticed the man's badge, a silver 1-star lieutenant's badge, a rank below his own. Turning to his sister, Lin asked if these individuals were her teammates for the competition. Mohan confirmed with a nod, explaining that, like her, they were from the Creators Academy and were among its top prodigies. Lin earnestly commented that he felt they weren't as powerful as his sister. Hearing this, Mohan chuckled. While feeling pleased, she reached to pat Lin's head, a gesture from their childhood. However, when she realized that she had to stand on her toes to do so now, she smiled and told Lin that was very sweet of him to say, while internally marveling at how quickly her little brother had grown up. As the day came to a close, it was time to say goodbye. Mohan prepared herself for the reality that, after the competition, she'd be heading off for another trial assigned by her mentor, likely leaving her unable to see Lin for a considerable period. Shifting from a momentary sadness, she playfully extended a thumbs up to Lin, commanding in a jest that she hopes to meet his girlfriend the next time they see each other. Lin, looking earnestly at his sister, shared his plans to join the Creators Academy soon. Mohan's smile widened while saying, "All right, I'll be waiting for you." The sunset marked the end of the first day of the professional competition. The following day arrived swiftly, and with the completion of the preliminary selections, the majority of the teams were eliminated, leaving only the elite contenders. As the 100th professional competition officially commenced, massive arenas became the center of attention. It was said there were 1,024 teams that had passed the preliminaries, setting the stage for a straightforward elimination round where the victor advances and the loser is eliminated. Tao Tao retrieved their team number, 512, and they were up against Team 513. Quickly, each team received its own number, with Tao Tao paying special attention to a few noteworthy teams, number 18, 322, 599, and several others. These teams consisted of top prodigies from different nations and factions, each composed of level 29 professionals equipped with top silver tier gear, and some of them also consisted of legendary professions. Tao Tao's diligent preparations paid off as the team immediately began strategizing, deciding to employ the same approach as the day before. Let themselves handle the combat initially, and have Lin intervene only if necessary. They want to test their own skills while getting stronger through real combat. Soon, it was Lin's team's turn to take the stage, with both teams' participants stepping up as the professionals' information was displayed on the big screen for all to see. Their opponent's team captain was a female knight, just like Tao Tao. As both teams stepped onto the stage, it was the start of a challenging and eagerly anticipated match. The opposing team's captain, a level 27 knight, was 3 levels above Tao Tao. However, no one on the team was worried, confident that Lin had their backs. The audience, upon seeing Lin's profession as a necromancer, expressed surprise. Regardless of their familiarity with the profession, many recognized Lin's team as the first to pass the preliminary selection, and Lin himself as the first place in the individual preliminary selection as well. Team 513 breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing the levels of Lin's team, underestimating them due to their lower levels and unfamiliarity with the necromancer profession, thinking it was just another standard mage profession. Seemed like they were confident in their victory. As the match commenced in the arena, with both teams positioned dozens of meters apart, Tao Tao led the front holding her shield, followed by Yi Yi, with Oliver and Emma right behind. Tao Tao locked eyes with the female knight on the other team, clearly ready for battle. At the start signal, both teams' support members cast buffs onto everyone. Soon, the opposing knight initiated with a charge skill, and Tao Tao, not to be outdone, launched her own charge. Simultaneously, Emma cast her skill. She used wind-binding skills and targeted the female knight's legs. The female knight was abruptly halted as the wind-binding skill which interrupted her charge, stopping her momentum and causing her to lose her balance. In that instant, Tao Tao collided with her, sending her flying and dislodging the shield from her grip. Tao Tao's charge skill didn't halt after the initial collision. She continued her momentum toward the rest of their team. In the midst of their disarray, she unleashed another knight-specific skill, Mass Taunt. Instantly, all attention and attacks from the enemy team were directed at Tao Tao, diverting focus from everyone else on her team. Unnoticed by the enemy, Yi Yi had vanished from sight, except for the female knight who was previously knocked away. Now, Tao Tao found herself standing in melee range with the enemy mage, with the opposing archer quickly reacting. Pulling out 3 arrows, The archer launched them simultaneously toward Tao Tao's flank, attempting to finish her off, or at least save the mage.